Chapter 898. On the stage, Wu Yan, who has been paying attention to Nagisa, saw her reaction. He appeared to be interacting with the students normally, but inside he was feeling helpless. Even though he had mastered all the tactics in the 103,000 books of witchcraft, he still couldn't think of a solution to this phobia of demons, which was similar to male phobia. Although Xiao Nagisa was proficient in all the tactics in the 103,000 books of witchcraft, he still couldn't think of a solution to this phobia of demons. In the final analysis, this phobia of demons was caused by the owner's mental state. Unless Xiao Nagisa thought it through, nobody could solve this phobia of demons. In other words, Nagisa must have been traumatized by something related to the Nephilim in the past. That's why she developed this phobia of the Nephilim. Wu Yan has only known Nagisa for a few days. Logically speaking, there's no reason for him to cure her phobia of the Nephilim. There's no reason for her to accept him either. Nagisa rejected him because of this reason, but he was only slightly hurt. He didn't mind it too much. After all, 90% of guys would be upset if a cute girl hates them. But now she's one of the students he's responsible for. For some reason, his cheap sister seems to care a lot about Nagisa. When he summoned his familiar, she even took the initiative to send Nagisa home. They seem to be getting along well. Nagisa. She's Kotori's only friend of the same age in Itagami Island. Even if they aren't close, at least they can get along peacefully, right? Thinking up to this point, Wu Yan glanced at Nagisa, who didn't even dare to look at him. An idea popped up in his mind. Oh right. In front of the whole class, Wu Yan suddenly said something. I didn't come to Kai-Hai Academy until today, so I'm not familiar with this school and everything here. Usually teaching is more or less a bit difficult, so I was wondering if I should find someone to act as my assistant and help me out. It's similar to a course representative. Hearing this, Misaki Sasasaki also felt that it was very reasonable and nodded. The students also had no objections and raised their hands in excitement. Sensei, let me do it. Let me do it. Let me do it. Sensei, pick me. No, it's me. Oh? Sasasaki was surprised to see the whole class raising their hands. It was as if she didn't know her students until today. He's so popular. Teacher Wu Yan. It was no wonder that Misaki Sasasaki was so surprised. Her students were not lifeless and were even a little lively. However, such a lively scene was very rare. It had to be said that Wu Yan's previous performance was very impressive. It really made these young students have a good impression of him. After all, no matter which student it was impossible to like a teacher who was difficult to get along with. Wu Yan seemed to be shocked as well. He didn't expect himself to be so charming. He didn't even think about it, and he was slightly pleased with himself. However, he also had other plans. I am very happy that so many people are willing to help me. However, this is difficult. It is difficult to choose. He acted as if he was in a difficult situation. His wine-red eyes turned and he looked at Xiao Nagisa. He chuckled. That student over there, why aren't you raising your hand? Wu Yan's speech caused the entire class to look at the stunned Nagisa. They were all shocked and bewildered at the same time. Yeah, why isn't Akatsuki-san raising her hand? That's impossible. Akatsuki-san, she is Akatsuki-san. She is usually the most enthusiastic one at this time. Yeah, that's strange. Nagisa-chan. Yukaina was also surprised. What's going on? For some reason, Nagisa was the center of attention in the class. She didn't know how to react, but when she did, she shrunk her neck in embarrassment and hurriedly shook her head. No. It's not. Xiao Nagisa stuttered. She didn't know what to say. She didn't know how to explain. She couldn't tell everyone that she has a phobia of demons, and that the popular teacher in front of her is actually a demon that hasn't appeared yet. Xiao Nagisa didn't want to reveal that she has a phobia of demons, let alone the fact that her classmates might not believe her. Even though she was afraid of Wu Yan, she couldn't help but complain in her heart. Why did he have to drag her down with him? Akatsuki-san. Wu Yan tilted his head and narrowed his eyes with a smile. How about you be my class representative? Xiao Nagisa was stunned again. She exclaimed when she realized what was going on. What's wrong? Wu Yan had expected this reaction, but he still forced a smile. You don't want to? All of the students looked at one another in bewilderment. They were all confused by Xiao Nagisa's intense reaction. Why was the cheerful, easygoing and warm-hearted Akatsuki acting so strange today? Sensing the strange gazes from the surrounding students, Xiao Nagisa started to panic. No. It's not like that. Xiao Nagisa was anxious because she didn't know how to explain herself. Wu Yan laughed and said to Xiao Nagisa, "How about this? If you're willing to help me and be my class representative, I'll give you something good." Something good? The student's attention was drawn. Something good? Xiao Nagisa was stunned. Wu Yan smiled warmly at her. Out of nowhere he pulled out a big box. Inside the box there are some piping hot pastries. In the next moment, the aroma of the pastries began to reverberate throughout the entire classroom at an uncontrollable speed. It didn't take long for it to fill every corner of the classroom. When everyone smelled the rich aroma that made them salivate, their spirits were shaken and their eyes lit up. "Don't look at me like that, I'm actually very good at cooking." Wu Yan smirked when he saw everyone's reaction. "If you're willing to help me, I'll treat you to some. It's really good." Listening to Wu Yan's words and actions that are akin to teasing a child, the crowd was speechless. He's not a kid, why would he bribe me with food? Yukaina shook her head with a smile, but her eyes didn't move away from the pastries. The smell was too tempting. Xiao Nagisa's heart wavered as she stared at the fragrant pastries. Her sweet and adorable face was extremely conflicted. She wasn't a foodie, but she still liked good food. She was just a little girl. However, the other party was also a demon. If she agreed, wouldn't she have to deal with him often in the future? How was that possible? Xiao Nagisa's eyes never left the pastries. The delicious aroma and her curiosity towards Wu Yan overcame her fear. She nodded. Okay. Okay. Wu Yan smiled. He smiled happily. The rest of the students weren't happy. "Hey, you're biased." "Yeah. We want some too. You guys." Wu Yan's smile turned bitter. Okay, I still have a lot." The group of students broke into smiles and cheered. "Thank you, teacher. Teacher. You're a good person. Don't give me a card." After that, the delicious pastries were distributed to the students one by one. Even Sasasaki Misaki, who was watching from the side, was given some and started eating. Thus, some absurd scenes appeared in the classroom. After all, this is a school, a classroom. What kind of teacher would give food to the students during class? Admittedly, Wu Yan's delicious pastries won the hearts of the students. Yukaina took a bite and let out a satisfied moan. She looked at the pastries in a different light. "It's delicious. It's true." Sasasaki and the other students' eyes lit up. "It's delicious." Nagisa chewed her desserts faster. At the same time, she snuck a peek at Wu Yan, who is distributing the desserts. Curiosity was the only thing left in her eyes. Chapter 899. Itagami Island, Saikai Academy Middle School Division Teacher's Office. Wu Yan shook his head and chuckled when he saw Yukaina and Nagisa hiding behind her awkwardly. "What are you doing?" Yukaina glanced at Nagisa on reflex when she heard Wu Yan's question. Nagisa immediately shook her head at Yukaina as if to say she won't come out. Yukaina had no choice but to explain herself. Wu Yan-sensei." Yukaina averted her eyes and carefully said to Wu Yan. "Nagisa-chan seems to be afraid of you, so she doesn't dare to be alone with you." Wu Yan was taken aback. He glanced at Nagisa, who was looking at him curiously but still hiding behind Yukaina. He sighed. "Well, you're right. Letting Akatsuki bring me around Saikai Academy is a bit too much for her." That. Nagisa also felt that her actions were a little hurtful. She blushed and murmured, I'm sorry." "Oh." Wu Yan raised an eyebrow and smiled. "You're finally willing to talk to me. This is already a huge improvement." Nagisa blushed even harder. She was even more embarrassed now. Although it was because she had a phobia of demons that she behaved like this. However, it was her fault for being so rude. Not only did Wu Yan not get angry, he even defended her. This made her feel bad. Of course, she was also happy. Ever since she developed her fear of demons, Nagisa couldn't even bear to look at the face of a demon, let alone talk to one. She hasn't interacted with demons for a few years now. Now she can talk to her sensei, who is a demon. Just like Wu Yan said, this is a huge improvement. Of course, at the end of the day, it's because of Wu Yan's harmless appearance. His kind behavior and the delicious pastries he had given her had left a good impression on Xianxia, and the curious, cheerful and lively girl had changed her opinion of him. That was why she was able to improve so much. If it were another demon, Xianxia wouldn't be able to resist him. Nagisa would probably still be afraid. After all, even Wu Yan, who left a good impression on her, she couldn't be completely unafraid of him, let alone other demons. Xianxia looked at Wu Yan and then at Nagisa. Recalling the conversation between the two of them, she asked, "Could it be? You two already know each other?" Wu Yan blinked and shrugged. "Well, we kind of know each other." Although the process was quite frustrating. Wu Yan stood up and walked out of the office. He waved at Xianxia and Nagisa. "Alright, come with me to the school. I'm curious about what this school has. Like a haunted lab or a dissecting course on beastmen." There's no such thing." Xianxia and Nagisa were frightened by Wu Yan's words. Xianxia and Nagisa screamed in unison. Wu Yan laughed. "Oh." Nagisa finally walked out from behind Xianxia. She stuck her tongue out at Wu Yan's back. "What a bad teacher." Xianxia laughed and shook her head, then pulled Nagisa's hand over. "Let's go. I feel like Wu Yan-sensei will cause trouble if we lose him." "Indeed. He is indeed a teacher that can't be trusted." Nagisa nodded as if she was telling the truth. "He's interesting, he speaks humorously, he's gentle, he doesn't cough in class, he doesn't bend his back, and he knows how to cook. He's a very nice person." Xianxia was speechless. She glared at Nagisa. "If that teacher is so nice, then why are you so afraid of him?" "There are all kinds of reasons." Nagisa waved her hand and smiled awkwardly. She saw that Xianxia wanted to get to the bottom of this, so she quickly pushed her out of the office. Alright, let's go." "I know, don't push me." Thus, a vampire, a sword sorcerer and a young girl who had a phobia of demons started to wander around Kai Academy, forming a marvelous combination. Saikai Academy is a very normal school, at least it looks that way on the surface. Here humans are the only ones to learn, unlike the demons in Itagami Island. Along the way, Wu Yan used the system to scan his surroundings. He thought he could find something, he found quite a bit, but most of it was within his expectations. 99% of the students here are normal. Their levels fluctuated between 10 and 10, but most of them are level 0. The ones with levels are those who do sports or join clubs. They're pretty good fighters, just like Chuju, who gained a certain level of strength from being a normal human. This isn't the first time Wu Yan sighed. As expected of a special demon city, even normal humans have a certain level of combat prowess. Although this level of combat prowess is nothing in the eyes of the demons, it doesn't diminish the strength of the humans in Itagami City. Being able to live together with demons is something to be proud of. Other than that, Wu Yan also noticed that a small number of people in Saikai Academy are above Tier 5. There are even a few Tier 7 existences. This group of people should have a certain level of attack mage skills, have practiced some kind of magic skill, or are natural overachievers. It couldn't be ruled out that they were attack mages hidden in the school, or attack mage officers assigned to Saikai Academy. In short, there are no demons in Saikai Academy, but it's a place full of crouching tigers and hidden dragons. However, Wu Yan wasn't surprised. Even the Tier 9 Natsuki is a teacher here. It's not hard to guess that there are some special people studying here. What surprised Wu Yan was that Xianxia Kimi isn't a normal student either. Xianxia Kimi, level 69. It was different from the thin and weak figure on the surface. In this thin and weak figure, there was actually a strength as high as the peak of the 7th order. Xianxia doesn't look like a demon, and normal students can't have this kind of strength. So Wu Yan guessed that Xianxia Kimi is also an attack mage. And her background isn't small either. One had to know that when Natsuki took him to participate in the test, he saw many other offensive mages. However, those offensive mages were all around the 6th step. Some of the 7th step ones were in their 70s or 80s. They couldn't compare to Xianxia, a 14-year-old girl who was already at the peak of the 7th step. Although peak Tier 7 strength is nothing in Wu Yan's eyes. What Wu Yan didn't know is that in the guitar case on Yukina's back, there is a weapon that even he can't ignore. With that weapon, not to mention a peak of the 7th rank, even a peak of the 8th rank or even a peak of the 9th rank would be killed by Xianxia if they weren't careful. Soon the three of them finished touring the junior high school building. Then the three of them came to the senior high school building. High school section. Nagisa said excitedly. Nagisa, I rarely come to the high school section. Me too. Yukina's expression changed as she said, but senior should be here, right? Yeah. Nagisa nodded. Koju-kun is here. Koju-kun. Wu Yen paused and turned to look at Nagisa. Koju-kun, is he Akatsuki Koju? Nagisa was startled by Wu Yan's sudden question. She shrunk back. Yes. Yes, Koju-kun. He's my brother. Wu Yen blanked out for a moment before he cried out in surprise. You're Akatsuki Koju's sister? Yeah. Nagisa looked at Wu Yen with a bewildered look. Do you know Koju-kun, teacher? Before Wu Yen could answer, another surprised voice came from behind them. Nagisa. Yakaina. Chapter 900. Akatsuki Koju. This isn't the first time Wu Yen heard this name. Even if he's not familiar with the plot, to the point where he's so unfamiliar with the plot that he can't even remember the main character's name, even if he doesn't remember his face. Also, while staying at Natsuki's place, Wu Yen heard her complain about having a troublesome student who could wipe the entire Saikai Academy off the map if he wasn't careful. That student is Akatsuki Koju. Of course, not many people in this world know the name Akatsuki Koju. However, when it comes to Akatsuki Koju's identity, everyone knows who he is. Only one of the 4 true ancestors existed in the legends. It was the 4th true ancestor whose existence had only been confirmed recently. The 4th primogenitor, the strongest vampire in the world. Even though he's a primogenitor, he's much stronger than the other 3 primogenitors. He controls 12 disaster-level familiars. Any one of them has the power to destroy Itagami City. He's the most uncontrollable variable in the city. Because of this, Natsuki paid special attention to Akatsuki Koju. Not a day goes by when she doesn't talk about him. After all, Akatsuki Koju is an atomic bomb that could explode at any time. Once the city is gone, Natsuki has to pay attention to him. She also has a headache. Of course, Natsuki's headache has increased from 1 to 2 primogenitors. They're both super powerful vampires, they both have familiars that can destroy Itagami City, and they're both unclassified demons. Wu Yen and Akatsuki Koju are very similar. Natsuki doesn't even know that Wu Yen is also a primogenitor. The difference is that as a primogenitor, Wu Yen has already shown his potential. Even though he's still not as strong as the other 3 primogenitors who have lived for God knows how long. But he definitely won't lose to anyone below primogenitor. This doesn't even include Ruby Mode and his familiars. In terms of familiars, Wu Yen only has 2, but he won't lose to anyone in terms of familiars, including the true ancestor. As for Koju, he was known as the world's strongest vampire ancestor, but in fact he wasn't completely. Vampires were powerful because of their familiars. The same was true for the primogenitors and even more so for the legendary 4th primogenitor. The 12 familiars that could rival calamity beasts were definitely at the pinnacle of their kind. The 4th true ancestor was the strongest in the world. But now, none of Xiao Guqing's familiars were under his control, and none of them were willing to listen to his orders. As the 4th ancestor's familiars, they hadn't fully acknowledged Xiao Guqing. If it wasn't for the fact that he'd gained control of one of the familiars a few days ago, Xiao Guqing wouldn't even be able to defeat an ordinary vampire. Wu Yen is qualified to be a true ancestor. Akatsuki Koju, on the other hand, is a half-baked true ancestor. This could be seen from the feedback from the system. Koju. What appeared in front of him was a boy wearing a high school uniform from Saihai Academy. He was wearing a white hooded jacket, and the hair in front of his forehead was the color of a wolf's body hair. It was slightly thin, and his handsome face was filled with laziness as if he was born like this. His eyes were squinting as if he was sleepy. He was about 16 or 17 years old, and there was nothing special about him. He was a high school student that could be seen everywhere. His eyes widened in surprise as if he was surprised to see Nagisa, Yakaina, and Yakaina here. He was even more surprised to see a boy with them. Wu Yen froze when he heard Koju's feedback. This is the first time he's seen someone's level displayed in. What's going on? System, what's with this message? Under Wu Yan's questioning, the system's voice echoed in his mind. User, the system's perception of the target's level is very unstable. It is unable to accurately assess the target's level. The system paused for a moment before continuing. According to the system's analysis, the target has 12 powerful familiars hidden within him, but they are not under the control of the host. If the host can further control these familiars, the target's level will gradually increase. The system cannot determine whether the target has familiars under his control, nor can it determine the number of familiars under his control. Therefore, it cannot determine the target's strength. Wu Yan understood what was going on. To put it simply, Koju was still an incomplete primogenitor. The familiars in his body weren't under his control, and each time he gained control of a familiar, his power would greatly increase. When that time came, his level would also greatly increase. In other words, Koju's level would increase as he gained control of the familiars in his body until he gained full control of all 12 familiars. Right now, Koju only had control of one familiar. He had many other disobedient familiars. The system could not determine whether these disobedient familiars were part of Koju's strength or not. Therefore, it could not determine his true level. Even the mysterious system could not do anything to the fourth true ancestor due to his half-baked skills. Wu Yan was speechless. Nagisa and Yukaina also noticed Koju. Scooching Kuan. Xiao Nagisa looked at her brother and waved at him happily. Kojo Kuan. Good morning. Good morning. Koju instinctively replied but quickly reacted and complained loudly. Now isn't the time to say good morning, is it? Why are you here? This is the high school division. Koju ran over and looked at Wu Yan in confusion. You are? Senpai. Yukaina walked up to Koju and introduced him. He's a new teacher in our class. We're here to show him around the school. I see. Koju nodded in realization. He turned to look at Wu Yan and met eyes with Wu Yan, who has been quietly observing him. Time seemed to have stopped as their gazes met. It was as if only the two of them were left in the world. Everything around them seemed to have disappeared. The two of them just stood there quietly looking at each other. They had actually fallen into an unbelievable state. Koju had a strange feeling as he looked at the figure in front of him. This feeling was similar to when he was in a basketball game. Excitement, fear, joy, and a heavy heart. It's a combination of excitement and danger. It's an indescribable feeling of comfort and nervousness. Inside Koju's body, the blood of a true ancestor flowed faster. His nerves became exceptionally sharp. The terrifying familiars that resided in Koju's blood didn't come out one by one. Instead, they all came out at the same time. That's because the familiars sensed a powerful enemy. Moreover, this powerful enemy was nearby. Koju's heart throbbed more and more intensely as time passed. He could finally sense the strange feeling in his heart. It was the feeling of sensing that a powerful comrade was approaching. The ancestor blood in his body is telling him that there's another existence of the same level in front of him. The strong feeling awakened the familiars. Koju was caught off guard by the sudden ruckus. It was already too late by the time he realized what was going on. Stop, stop. Koju's body suddenly trembled. His expression became ferocious as his pupils slowly turned red. His fangs slowly protruded out and a terrifying demonic power erupted from his body. Ah, Koju! He screamed in pain. Chapter 901. Without any warning, Koju let out a painful roar. His whole body seemed to be possessed by something. Even his muscles were faintly twitching. His face was distorted and filled with obvious discomfort. A surge of mana that made Wu Yan's pupils shrink suddenly surged out of Koju's body like a tidal wave. It exploded in all directions, and in just a short time, the mana on his body had expanded to the point where it could blow up the surrounding walls and windows. Wu Yan has never seen such a powerful mana on anyone other than himself. Wu Yan cursed when he saw the magic power spreading in all directions. The glass and walls around him started cracking. He immediately made his move. Ping! Following a firecracker-like sound, Wu Yan's mana was no weaker than Koju's. He moved his feet and a raindrop of light rippled from his body. Then Wu Yan, Koju, Yukaina, and Xiao Nagisa all disappeared from the corridor. All that was left at the scene was a half-cracked corridor that hadn't collapsed in time and shattered glass all over the floor. It was as if a small bomb had just been detonated here. It was an indescribable mess. At the same time in Saikai Academy. In a classroom. A hedgehog-headed boy with headphones was blasted by the noise from his own headphones. He pulled them out of his ears in discomfort. His face was pale and he couldn't stop panting. Just now that was Gu Qing. He glanced at the direction of the cracked corridor and glanced at the students in the classroom. Then he left his seat as if nothing had happened and rushed towards the corridor. That guy, could it be that he's met with some trouble again? Saikai Academy High School, a luxurious office on the top floor. Sitting in front of a spacious desk, Natsuki was enjoying a cup of Wu Yan's black tea she brought from home. She was enjoying a rare moment of leisure. When Koji's mana went berserk, Nayu abruptly stopped what she was doing and a grave expression appeared in her deep blue eyes. Natsuki stood up. She leaned to the side. A similar flash of light rippled from her petite body. He disappeared from the office in an instant, and when he reappeared he was already in the hallway where Koji's mana had gone berserk. Two different types of magic. He looked around at the messy surroundings. Nayu narrowed her eyes and then closed them. Looks like Wu Yan's meeting with Koju is the cause of all this trouble. Natsuki sighed as she analyzed the situation. Really, troublesome juniors and troublesome students, both of them are so troublesome. I hope they can solve it themselves. After saying that, Natsuki teleported again and returned to her office. She started to leisurely drink some tea. In Kaihai Academy, almost everyone who sensed the abnormal magic power walked around this corridor until they couldn't find anything or were afraid of being discovered by others. Only then did they reluctantly return to their original positions. 15 minutes later, the situation here was discovered by the ordinary students, who reported it to the school teachers. The entire Saikai Academy fell into a small commotion. In the end, the cracked corridor was covered up with the unconvincing excuse of being in disrepair. Itagami Island, the area where Wu Yan summoned his familiar. A flash of light suddenly appeared in the middle of the junkyard. Then four figures of different sizes appeared out of thin air. As soon as they appeared, one of the figures burst out with a violent gust of wind mixed with rich magic power, stirring up the deathly silent scene into a mess. Koji's voice was filled with uncontrollable pain. It made the hearts of those who heard it ache, but there was nothing they could do. He was already doing his best, but he still couldn't stop the vassal beasts inside his body from causing a ruckus. For the current Koju, controlling these familiars is as difficult as ascending to the heavens. It's impossible. As a primogenitor, he's not a primogenitor. He can force the familiars in his body to calm down, but when he's attacked by other familiars or suffers serious injuries, they'll instinctively protect him even though they can't be controlled. Since Koju can't control them, the method they use to protect him is too harsh. They'll just cause a ruckus and destroy everything around them. That way the threat will disappear. However, this time is different. The familiars are causing a ruckus because they ran into a powerful enemy they haven't seen in a long time, one that isn't weaker than them. Others might not know what kind of existence Wu Yan is, but the familiars of a primogenitor are the first to realize that Wu Yan is a primogenitor. Thus, the familiars that have been sleeping in Koju's body for a long time got excited and started a rebellion. It's rare for a primogenitor of the same level to appear. The Calamity's avatars wanted to come out and fight. They wanted to vent their frustrations after being asleep for so long. Thus, Koju was dragged into this mess by a group of willful familiars. Along with the roar, a wild storm of mana swept out and filled every corner of the battlefield. Yukaina, who was caught off guard, finally realized what was going on. Senpai. Yukaina was shocked to see Koju's mana go berserk. What's going on? Haha. Yukaina didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I think it's because of me. Teacher. Yukaina hurriedly turned to Wu Yan and saw Nagisa, who had fainted in his arms. Her expression changed. Nagisa. Koju looked at Nagisa with difficulty. When he saw her faint, he didn't panic. Instead, he let out a sigh of relief. Koju knew that his sister was afraid of demons. That's why he hid his identity as the fourth primogenitor. Only a few people knew about it. If his sister knew that her brother was a demon, the consequences would be. Don't worry. Wu Yan seemed to know what the two girls were thinking. He placed Nagisa in Yukina's arms. Akatsuki-san is just under hypnosis, it's nothing serious. Wu Yan smiled at Koju and Yukaina. After all, I'm sure you guys would have a headache if she were to see this, right? Koju looked at Wu Yan gratefully, but he quickly bent over in pain. On the other hand, Yukaina looked at Wu Yan with a serious expression. This teacher actually knows how to teleport magic, and it's so advanced that he was able to teleport the berserk Koju himself and Nagisa together. Looking at the scene, it seems to be quite a distance away from Sai-Hai Academy. It seems like he's the reason why Akatsuki went berserk. The new teacher in front of him was definitely not an ordinary person. Who is he? Yukaina became cautious, but she didn't question him. The most important thing right now is to stop Koju from going berserk. Otherwise, Itagami Island will be in danger. Fortunately, her weapon came in handy in this situation. Just as this thought appeared in his mind, Koju's condition changed again. "No. Go back," Koju shouted himself hoarse, but it was clearly useless. Under everyone's gaze, Koju's mana turned into golden lightning. A blood-colored mist floated out of his body. Then a giant lion wearing golden armor and golden lightning appeared in the air. Roar! The golden lion roared from within the lightning. Jishui Yukina's pupils shrank as she said in a serious tone, word by word. Fourth Primogenitor's fifth familiar, Lion's Gold. Chapter 902. Roar. Koju's eyes were uncontrollably dyed red, and his canine-like teeth protruded from his tightly clenched jaws. His body glowed red as if his skin was being torn apart. However, it wasn't blood, it was the sign of vassal beasts being released. Beep beep beep, a dazzling golden-yellow lightning glow swelled, causing the atmosphere to become scorching hot. That glaring light covered the entire place, accompanied by a violent impact, as well as the explosive sound produced by the impact. The concentrated magic energy turned into a destructive thunderstorm. The uncontrollable lightning swept across the ground, and the shockwave turned into a violent storm. Koju's body was completely engulfed by the golden light, and dense thunderbolts were released indiscriminately in the surroundings. It was as if a colorless thundercloud had appeared out of nowhere. Itagami Island shook as if there was an earthquake. The surrounding ocean also became tsunami-like. Blood, lightning, and indescribable heat and shockwaves followed. The golden lightning lion was like the largest airship, its entire body glowing with golden light. Roar like thunder. The atmosphere shook. Roar. The scattered electric current spread out in all directions, and the surrounding rocks and rubbish were instantly sent flying. The ground emitted a kacha-kacha sound as it cracked open bit by bit. A real earthquake was nothing more than this. This was the power of the world's strongest vampire, the fourth primogenitor's familiar. Even if Koju wasn't a primogenitor yet, the Lion's Gold's power couldn't be fully unleashed. However, the destructive power it displayed was enough to be called a primogenitor's familiar. It wasn't a match for a primogenitor's familiar. If Koju fully matured into the fourth primogenitor, it wasn't hard to imagine. Why was the fourth primogenitor the strongest in the world? Lion's Gold. Yukaina was a bit confused as she shook her head helplessly. Why did the Lion's Gold go berserk? Wasn't it already under Senior's control? That's right, the Lion's Gold. It was the only familiar Koju could control. Because of this. That's why it could show itself. The other familiars. Because they weren't under Koju's control, they could only use Koju's body to release a portion of their power. However, they couldn't fully release their power. Only the Lion's Gold, which was under Koju's control, could use its host's mana to fully show itself. Wu Yan's wine-red eyes turned serious as he looked at the majestic lion roaring at the sky. He could clearly sense that the Lion's Gold's destructive power was at the peak of the 9th stage. In other words, the Lion's Gold before him could be considered a peak of the 9th stage's attack. Just the destructive power alone didn't mean that Koju was a powerhouse at the peak of the 9th step. Destructive power was destructive power and strength was strength. The Lion's Gold could only be used as an all-out attack of a peak 9th step powerhouse. In terms of fighting power, an initial 9th step powerhouse wouldn't be in any danger. After all, as long as he didn't get hit, it was fine. This also means that Wu Yan can't afford to get hit by Lion's Gold. If he gets hit by the full power of a peak tier 9 fighter, he would be reduced to ashes. However, Wu Yan wasn't afraid at all. Instead, he was excited. As expected of the vassal beast of the world's strongest vampire. Wu Yan licked his lips in a bloodthirsty manner. He felt like he was about to explode with pride. One day I will take the title of the world's strongest vampire. Amidst his emotional turmoil, Wu Yan took a deep breath and walked towards the terrifying lightning lion. Sensei! Yukaina exclaimed. It's dangerous here, let me. Don't worry. With his back facing Yukaina, Wu Yan's firm and resolute tone entered Yukina's ears. It's just an incomplete primogenitor's familiar. No matter how destructive it is, it can't hurt me. Ma, sensei. Yukaina flinched. She was stunned by Wu Yan's bold words. Roar. Maybe it heard Wu Yan's disdainful words. Lion's gold roared in anger. It stomped on the air and its huge body turned into a deadly lightning bolt as it charged towards Wu Yan, who is on the ground. It shot out explosively. Shit. Yukaina gritted her teeth. Her face was pale. If the lion's gold landed on the ground, even if Itagami Island didn't sink, it would turn into an abandoned island. The ripples of magic power and lightning hit Wu Yan. Looking at the lion's gold charging towards him, Wu Yan's expression didn't change at all. However, his eyes flashed with a cold glint. If you were a complete primogenitor, I would have no choice but to release my familiar. Wu Yan closed his eyes, ignoring Yukaina, who was stunned by his words. But it's just an incomplete primogenitor. As soon as he finished speaking, bang! White flames burst out from Wu Yan's body, bursting out from his body. The white flame didn't have the slightest temperature, but as it burned, the space around it started to distort. At the same time, a surge of mana and a sharp sonic boom could be heard. He gently raised his hand and all the white flames on his body flowed into his hand, condensing into a ball. This level. Wu Yan mumbled as he looked at the lion's gold. That's enough. With a flash of golden light in his eyes, he waved his hand and the white flame turned into a small flame beam. With a trail of white flames, it silently flew past the lightning lion and collided head-on with the lightning lion that couldn't even compare to him. Bang! The flames streaked across the sky like a meteor, distorting the space around it. The white flame pierced the lion's gold between its eyebrows like a needle. Following that, an unbelievable scene appeared. Roar. The lion's gold abruptly stopped its dive and roared in pain. Between its brows, a white flame slowly burned, and in the blink of an eye, the flame enveloped the entire lion's gold body. The lightning disappeared and the golden light dimmed. The golden thunder lion was dyed white, and the golden lightning on its body was replaced by a burning white flame. Under the slow burning of the flame, the lion's gold roared and slowly disintegrated the lion's gold bit by bit, like a cage trapping a lion. The lion's gold turned into little sparks and gradually dissipated. No matter how hard it struggled, it was of no use. In the end, it completely disappeared along with the white flames. The entire scene returned to silence. Only the lion's roar that was still reverberating in the air was still lingering in the air, indicating what had just happened. Ha! Koju retracted all of his mana and laid on the ground, panting. He couldn't get up anymore. The moment the lion's gold disappeared, the other familiars in Koju's body retreated one by one as if they had seen something terrifying. Despite their reluctance, they understood that they were no match for this powerful enemy, in their incomplete form. They couldn't even defeat the lion's gold when it was fully released, let alone the familiars who could only release a portion of its power. Calm down. Koju looked at his hand in relief. Then he looked at Wu Yan in disbelief. My familiars, they were defeated by him in one hit. That fire. Jishui Yukina's fine hairs stood straight up as she trembled in fear. Too terrifying. Both of them looked at Wu Yan, who was bathing in the sunlight. Their hearts started to waver. Wu Yan. Who the hell is he? Chapter 903. Itagami Island, Minamiya Natsuki's house. On the table in the hall, small plates of tea and pastries were placed all over the table. The plates of delicious food were like delicately carved ceramics. They were exquisite and pleasing to the eye. In addition, the steam and fragrance wafting from the tea and pastries were enough to make one's heart itch with just a glance. Wu Yan was sitting on a sofa. Xiao Guqing and Yukaina were sitting across from him. Their faces were filled with hesitation and caution. Their eyes were glued to the refreshments on the table. From time to time they would swallow their saliva. It seems like the temptation of the refreshments was affecting them. However, they didn't make a move. After all, they were in someone else's home, and they were brought here by their mysterious teacher, who had the ability to defeat a true ancestor's familiars with a single strike. Under such circumstances, it was natural for them to be cautious and cautious. As for Nagisa, she was happily sitting on the other side of the sofa. She was excitedly munching on the refreshments on the table. She was enjoying the red tea. Kotori sat beside her and ate with Nagisa. She was used to Wu Yan's cooking, so she wasn't in a rush. The two ignored Wu Yan, Koju Yukaina, and Yukaina, who were stuck in a weird stalemate. They ate like there's no one else around them, and they kept talking. Of course, Nagisa was the one talking and Kotori was the one listening. It seemed that in a short period of time, the relationship between the two had developed quite well. Kotori didn't mind Nagisa's nagging. According to her, compared to the boring meetings in Ratatosker, Nagisa's words were child's play. Wu Yan couldn't help but chuckle when he saw the two of them looking at the refreshments with a cautious look on their faces. All right. Go ahead and eat if you want. No need to be so reserved. Just treat this as your own house. Xiao Guqing and Yukaina were embarrassed. Kotori gave Wu Yan a disdainful look. How can you say something like that? This isn't your house. Wu Yan was embarrassed. He turned his head away. Xiao Guqing and Yukaina giggled. Their expressions were much more casual. After hesitating for a moment, the two of them finally couldn't stop themselves from salivating. She reached out to the tea on the table and pretended to be calm as she put it into her mouth and took a bite. Their eyes widened. They couldn't help but exclaim. Delicious. Right. It's delicious, right? Before Wu Yan could say anything, Nagisa exclaimed. This taste. It's perfect. It's much better than Nagisa's. Nagisa was disheartened. I was confident in my cooking, but now. I'm defeated. As long as you guys like it. Wu Yan shrugged. I'm not afraid to tell you guys that my cooking skills were honed under the pressure of a bunch of foodies. It's definitely better than the ones sold in the shops. Umph. Kotori snorted and turned her head away to show that she wasn't a foodie. However, her behavior made it seem like she was trying to hide something. Xiao Nagisa and the others were trying hard not to laugh. Akatsuki Koju and Yukaina shifted their attention away from the refreshments. They looked at Wu Yan with a hesitant look as if they have something to say. I know what you're wondering. Wu Yan said. It's normal that you're curious. I'm not trying to hide it. I'm not a normal teacher. I'm an attack mage. Back demon official. Koju was startled, but he soon understood. An attack mage like Natsuki-chan? Wu Yan nodded and smiled helplessly. Although I'm just an apprentice. But. Yukaina looked at Wu Yan with a serious look. Back then, I remember you said something, if I'm not mistaken it was release vassal beasts, right? That's right. Ignoring Koju and Yukina's shocked expressions, Wu Yan didn't try to hide anything. I did say that. I may be an attack mage, but I am also a vampire. Vampires. Yukina's expression turned strange. An attack mage vampire is like a pig holding a butcher's knife, so ridiculous that it makes people speechless. Wait. You're saying you're a vampire? Koju drew a sharp breath as he turned to Nagisa with an urgent expression. Then. Nagisa. Well, I've been troubled by this as well. Wu Yan smiled bitterly and glanced at Nagisa. Because I'm a vampire, Katsuki-chan has been avoiding me. I'm sorry, teacher. Nagisa lowered her head apologetically. Wu Yan waved his hand. You don't have to take it to heart. I more or less know about your situation. I'm already very happy to be able to sit and eat with me. Yeah. Nagisa. Xiao Guqing stood up and looked at Nagisa nervously. You know that Wu Yan sensei is a demon, aren't you afraid? Koju-kun, don't overreact. Nagisa blushed and pressed Xiao Guqing down. She felt that Xiao Guqing was making a fuss over nothing and was embarrassing her. It was no wonder that Koju had such a huge reaction. He was originally a human, but the former fourth primogenitor had willingly sacrificed himself and used the principle of cannibalism to transfer the fourth primogenitor's bloodline and familiars to him. That was how he became the new fourth primogenitor. It was also because of this that he was unable to control his familiars. He was originally a human, but became the fourth primogenitor because of someone else's charity. Like a nouveau riche, the fourth primogenitor was the most powerful vampire in the world. How could the prideful familiars of the fourth primogenitor acknowledge a nouveau riche as their master? In order to control his familiars, Xiao Guqing had to feed on the blood of powerful spiritualists and sacrifice them to satisfy his familiars. That was the only way he could slowly gain control over them. But for Koju, familiars were secondary. His biggest headache was his sister. He was a vampire and a demon, but his sister had a phobia of demons. He was constantly worried that his identity would be exposed one day, and his sister would leave him because of it. But now Nagisa didn't seem to be afraid of Wu Yan. How could he not be excited? Actually, I was very scared at first. I was so scared that I couldn't even stand seeing Sensei. Nagisa lowered her head and snuck a peek at Wu Yan. But not only did Wu Yan Sensei not blame me, he tolerated me in many ways. He treated me to delicious food and treated me so gently. It's hard to believe, but Nagisa isn't that scared anymore. Nagisa blushed. That's how she behaved when she said such embarrassing things to herself. I can't get too close to Sensei Wu Yan yet, but I'm no longer afraid of talking to him. That's already good enough. Wu Yan couldn't help but laugh. I believe that if we continue to interact with each other, Akatsuki will gradually get better. At that time, maybe your phobia of demons will be cured without the need for medication. Nagisa nodded resolutely and clenched her fists in excitement. Nagisa will work hard. Then Nagisa. Koju gulped and asked impatiently, then if I become a demon too? Of course not. Xiao Nagisa glared at Xiao Guqing in a coquettish manner. Right now, Nagisa can only stop being afraid of Sensei Wu Yan. If Guqing really becomes a demon, Nagisa will still be afraid. How can this be? Koju lowered his head like he was hurt. He continued with an envious tone. Then why does Wu Yan Sensei get to treat him differently? That's why Nagisa doesn't know. Nagisa puffed up her cheeks. Plus, Wu Yan Sensei is gentle, he talks funny, he's easy to get along with, and he cooks delicious food. Koju-kun, you need Nagisa to wake you up in the morning, you're so lazy, you can't even compare to Wu Yan Sensei. Every time Nagisa spoke, Koju's body would twitch. In the end, his body would twitch violently and collapse onto the sofa. Wu Yan turned away guiltily, no longer daring to look at Nagisa. He too loved to sleep in. Chapter 904. Itagami Island, Saikai Academy. When the bell rang, Wu Yan, who was lecturing in third-year C class, let out a sigh of relief. He gestured to the students. Alright, that's all for today. Don't forget to memorize what you should when you get back. There's only one secret to being a liberal arts student, and that's memorization. Wu Yan sighed as he tidied up the books that were less than 2 centimeters thick. When he was studying in the past, his textbooks were thicker than dictionaries, and that was only one book. It was unlike now, where he could burn books one by one and they might not last long. In comparison, the students here were blessed beyond belief. Perhaps out of indignation, Wu Yan's lips curled into a smirk. Oh right, there's a test tomorrow, remember to revise tonight. If you fail, I won't let you off so easily. Downstairs, a bunch of students screamed in shock before slumping down on their desks with dispirited expressions. Wu Yan was satisfied when he saw this. No matter where the students are from, exams are the most painful thing to do. This is undeniable. If you have anything to say, just tell Akatsuki, classmate, don't come to me. After saying this irresponsibly, Wu Yan walked out of the classroom. The students were furious. Wu Yan, sensei, you're so mean. Yeah, to think I thought he was a good person. Why don't we beg the sensei? Tell him not to take the test. But didn't the sensei tell us not to look for him? Then let's go talk to Akatsuki, classmate. Good idea. Therefore, next to Nagisa's desk. Immediately, a large group of classmates rushed over to watch. Akatsuki, classmate. Help us beg the sensei. Yeah. Tests and whatnot are the most annoying. Of course not. Nagisa was overjoyed to see her classmates crowding around her. She began to talk endlessly without even taking a breath. Tests are good too. They can help you understand your current level and where you're lacking. Can also help you learn better. That's right. I heard that testing can improve one's memory. Continuous testing will also help one's thinking. Furthermore, continuous testing can also improve one's writing speed. If one is more focused, one can even write more beautifully. There are so many benefits. Nagisa doesn't like tests, but I don't hate them either. Also, Wu Yan sensei is easy to talk to, but he's very stubborn in certain areas. Yesterday, in order to buy a phone, sensei walked to another street. The sun was so bright that I didn't dare to go out. Nagisa didn't know. Wu Yan walked to another street block. His real purpose wasn't to buy a phone. He wanted to buy a lollipop shop. He had no choice. He has a sister who loves to eat lollipops. Her lollipops are running out. Without lollipops to keep her company, she's capable of doing anything. That's not the most important thing. Liking lollipops is fine, but liking only one brand of lollipops is too much. Since he doesn't know if there's a lollipop in this world, Wu Yan decided to take one step at a time. Otherwise, he might as well teleport and return home to enjoy the air conditioner. Why would he need to sunbathe in the sun at this point? It had to be said that it was a mistake for these students to talk to Nagisa. Under the bombardment of Nagisa's words, the students went from pleading for her to pleading for themselves, sweating profusely. In the end, they were still muddle-headed. If words were a type of power, Nagisa would be a god tier, no, a super god tier. Nagisa was reluctant to leave the classroom, and Yukaina couldn't help but smile bitterly as she watched the students scramble out of the classroom. Nagisa-chan, let's go find Wu Yan-sensei, we still have to help him. Hearing this, Nagisa paused for a moment. Then, as if she remembered something, she jumped up with a cry. Oh right. We still have to help him move. Before she could finish, Nagisa grabbed Yukina's hand and ran out of the classroom. Yukina-chan. Hurry up. It won't be good if we're late. I know. Yukaina smiled bitterly inside. She could only let Nagisa drag her out. In a place not far from Kaihai Academy, there was an apartment. This was the apartment where Xiao Guqing, Xiao Nagisa, and Yukaina lived. Xiao Guqing and Xiao Nagisa lived in room 704, while Yukaina lived in room 705. This was not a coincidence, Yukaina had purposely arranged it. Yukaina was a sword shaman of Lion Organization. She came to Itagami City to keep an eye on the fourth primogenitor, Xiao Guqing. The power of a true ancestor was too great. As long as a true ancestor made a move and released a familiar to cause trouble, it would be no different from a disaster or even a war. Koju was a true ancestor, so the Lion King organization, which specialized in dealing with magical disasters, naturally had to keep an eye on him. At least that was the reason on the surface. Since the first day she arrived at Itagami Island, Yukaina has turned into an unqualified stalker. She followed Koju around and lived in the same place as him. Today someone they were familiar with would be staying here once again. Sensei. Kodori-tan. Nagisa, Yukaina, and Koju saw Wu Yan and Kodori standing in front of the apartment building. The three of them hastened their steps as they ran over. Too slow, Nagisa. Kodori reprimanded. We've been waiting here for almost 30 minutes. Sorry. Nagisa put her palms together and apologized mischievously. I was having too much fun chatting with my classmates in class and forgot. Please forgive me. You didn't have to come here in person. Wu Yan shook his head helplessly. Even though we're moving, the furniture company will deliver it to us. We don't even need to move things, we can just use space magic, why go through so much trouble? No way. Of course not. Nagisa leaned forward with arms akimbo. Even if you don't need our help, we still want to go in with you. I didn't even know Yukina-chan was moving in. If I knew, I would have witnessed her move in. Witness what? Kotori laughed dryly. That's a little too much. Yes. Nagisa puffed up her cheeks. Anyways, we're all neighbors, we have to help each other. Yes. Everyone nodded helplessly. Then Wu Yan led them upstairs. The reason they moved here is because of Kotori. Not long ago, Kotori and Yukaina were accidentally involved in an incident that was extremely dangerous to Itagami Island. In the end, Koju and Yukaina intervened and solved the problem. Koju successfully took control of his first familiar, Lion's Gold, and rescued an artificial life form with nothing in it. And now this artificial life form was adopted by Nayu. Just yesterday it moved into Nayu's home. That wasn't the problem. The problem was that this artificial life girl named Astaruti, whether it was intentional or natural, was always naked when she came out of the bathroom or room, whether she was taking a bath or sleeping. She often ran around naked. How can anyone stand this? Even if Wu Yan is willing, Kotori and Natsuki won't be. However, Astaruti has been lectured countless times by the others, but she's still stubborn. Left with no choice, Wu Yan decided to move out with Kotori. Natsuki is regretful that Wu Yan no longer cooks for her and makes her tea. Wu Yan mentioned this to Nagisa and Yukaina when they were at school. Nagisa said they can move in. As a result, today's incident happened. Chapter 905. Wu Yan and Kotori are living in room 703. It's only one wall away from Koju's house and one room away from Yukina's house. Wu Yan's house was the only place where he lived in date battle. In the other worlds he lived in either a mansion or a large luxurious apartment. If it wasn't for Nagisa's invitation, Wu Yan would have bought a mansion even more luxurious than Natsuki's house. The house in this apartment was not very spacious, but there was no problem with 3 or 4 people living in it. In the case of only 2 people living in it, this ordinary house had no shortcomings. The only drawback was that it was a little high, but there was an elevator so it did not matter. All right. After moving the last piece of furniture to its rightful place, Wu Yan clapped his hands and turned to everyone. Thank you for coming today. If you have time in the future, feel free to come over for dinner. Of course I'll cook for you. Nagisa, Yukaina, and Koju's eyes lit up when they heard Wu Yan's words. They coughed and they nodded while pretending to be serious. Wu Yan and Kodori almost flipped over with laughter. Then we'll head back first. Nagisa waved at the two and said in a cheerful tone, I'll hold a welcome party for you, but sensei, you'll have to cook. How can you hold a welcome party and ask someone to cook for you? Wu Yan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Well, forget about the welcome party. It's getting late and we won't be able to make it in time for dinner if we hold a welcome party. Come to my place for a meal tomorrow. Consider it a relocation banquet. You're right. Yukaina looked out the window. The sky is still dark, but it's starting to get dark. It won't be long before night falls. Itagami City is like summer all year round. Usually, the night would come very slowly and the night would be very short. At this time it was almost time to take a bath and sleep. Is that so? Nagisa was a bit disappointed, but she pulled herself together. Remember to cook a big meal tomorrow. I know. Wu Yan shook his head and gave Nagisa a teasing look. I just hope you won't be afraid to eat with me at the same table. I won't. Nagisa blushed and glared at Wu Yan. She looks like a puppy less than a month old baring its fangs at its owner. It's cute. Nagisa, it's time to go back. Koju saw the interaction between Wu Yan and Nagisa and quickly stepped forward. He pulled Nagisa's clothes and urged her to leave. There was a trace of jealousy in his eyes and he looked at Wu Yan with caution. Nagisa didn't notice anything. Wu Yan and Yukaina saw the look in Koju's eyes and they exchanged a look. They were speechless. Senpai, he's a siscon. Yukaina whispered and caught Koju's attention. Yukaina, did you say something just now? You were too quiet, I didn't hear. No. Yukaina shook her head and smiled awkwardly. Nothing. Oh. Koju looked at Yukaina suspiciously and said goodbye to Wu Yan with Nagisa. Then we're going back. Bye-bye, sensei. See you tomorrow. And bye-bye. Waving goodbye to the trio, Wu Yan watched them return to their own homes before closing the door with a chuckle. Koju, I didn't think he was a siscon. It's not that I can't understand. Kodori tore open her newly bought treasure and put it in her mouth. Nagisa is so cute. If I were her brother, I wouldn't want to marry her off. Wu Yan raised an eyebrow and put on a fake smile. I didn't think your relationship with Nagisa would improve so much in just a few days. Kodori glanced at Wu Yan and narrowed her red eyes. You're the same. A few days ago you were Akatsuki classmate and now you're calling her Nagisa so intimately. Calling someone by their name is a way to improve their relationship. Wu Yan smiled and teased. Isn't that right? Kodori felt a chill down her spine when she heard Wu Yan calling her Nagisa. She shuddered and glared at Wu Yan. I don't care what you say, don't use that disgusting tone with me. Oh, Wu Yan sighed and changed his tone to one of melancholy. Kodori is cuter when she's in her little sister mode. Wu Yan sensed a sharp gaze on him. He looked over and saw Kodori gritting her teeth as she turned her head away. She's a Tsundra little sister. Don't call her Tsundra. Kodori glared at Wu Yan and stopped talking. She sat on the sofa and sulked. Wu Yan rolled his eyes in amusement. He walked over to Kodori and sat down beside her. The moment he sat down, he heard a soft snort. Then he heard something else. Stay away from me, seriously. Hey Kodori. Wu Yan cut her off and looked up at the ceiling. When was the last time you were alone like this? Kodori was taken aback, her angry expression disappeared. She lowered her head and said softly, when you left that world. The night Wu Yan bade farewell to Kodori was the only person he said his goodbyes to. That was also the last time the two of them were able to spend time together in peace like this. When I left that world. Wu Yan's pupils dilated as if he was reminiscing about the past. It's already been so long. It's been more than 3 years. That's you. Kotori couldn't help but blurt out. You spent 3 years in another dungeon when you were on a compulsory mission, but I spent less than a month here. Is that so? Wu Yan smiled bitterly. That's so unfair. It's not unfair at all. Kotori raised her voice slightly before lowering it again. Even if you spent more time than I did, but I miss you, Oni-chan, just as much as you do. Of course, Kotori didn't say that out loud. Wu Yan didn't use any mind-reading jutsu on her. However, he somehow heard Kotori's voice. He looked at her and he rubbed her little head that's covered by a black headband. Thank you for your hard work. Humph. Kotori turned her head away awkwardly. If you're talking about taking me away from that world, there's no need for that. I don't think it's hard work, in fact. I'm happy. Is that so? Wu Yan grinned and he whispered something that made Kotori flustered. Then why don't you give yourself to me today? WBOB, what are you talking about? Kotori jumped up, her face flushed red, but Wu Yan quickly caught her. She lost her balance and fell into Wu Yan's arms. Ah! Kotori screamed, and before she could react, Wu Yan picked her up in a princess carry. Let go. Kotori yelled with her face flushed red. She struggled with all her might, her heart thumping wildly. That won't do. Wu Yan chuckled. You won't be able to escape today. If you try to escape, I'll take off your headband. No. Kotori let out a reflexive shout before lowering her head with a reddened face. However, she no longer struggled. If it's not me now. I can't. I cry easily when I'm white. I know. Wu Yan whispered into Kotori's ear again. So tonight it's Commander Mode. Kotori's turn. Kotori opened her mouth. She wanted to say something, but Wu Yan sealed her mouth. Wu. Kotori widened her eyes. Her eyes were wet. She looked at Wu Yan's face that was inches away from hers and closed her eyes. Not long after, their clothes fell to the ground. Night fell. Chapter 906. Compared to daytime, Itagami City's nighttime is short. Therefore the morning came very quickly. When the sky is bright and the sun shines down from the sky, the residents of Itagami City, other than those who have to wake up early, are still deep in slumber. More than 80% of them are still asleep. With the passage of time, the streets gradually became noisy. Trams began to move back and forth. Whether it was office workers or students, they were all preparing to travel day after day, year after year, with only one goal in mind, and that was to not be late. At the same time, Wu Yan's home. Because it was an apartment, the windows were usually opened in the sleeping rooms. There was very little sunlight in the living room. However, at this moment, even though there was no sunlight in the living room was already lit up. However, there were still 2 breaths of time left in the living room. Pieces of clothes were scattered on the ground, and there were even some underwear, which made the originally clean hall look a little sloppy. The sofa and the chair had been completely covered by a not very thick quilt, leaving only a soft armrest exposed to the air. And there, 2 heads are pillowed on the armrest. The body is covered by the blanket. At a certain moment, a soft groan came from one of the heads, breaking the silence. A pair of eyebrows frowned slightly and eyelids trembled. Then it opened its eyes rather lazily and with difficulty, revealing a pair of beautiful red eyes. The light shone into Kotori's field of vision, and the dazzling luster caused her to squint her sleepy eyes, which were rippling with traces of water. On her cheeks, circles of red that made people unable to look away were all over her face. It was as if she had just had a very happy dream. But of course that wasn't the case. Her consciousness returned to her mind. Kotori looked around in a daze. The black headband on his head moved like a rabbit's ears. Then she felt her body. It's soft and numb. A strange sense of comfort spread throughout her body. Kotori, who was still in a daze, thought that she had accidentally fallen asleep while taking a bath last night, and that she had been soaking in the water for the whole night. Only when she heard a familiar breathing sound did Kotori snap out of her daze, and her memories returned to her mind. The blush on her cheeks quickly spread, dyeing her face a shade brighter than her hair. Kotori squealed as she felt the warmth of the embrace. She remembered Wu Yan is still asleep, so she shut her mouth and held her breath, not daring to make a sound. She got up from the sofa in a flustered manner. She wanted to jump down, but she's naked right now. If she jumped down, she would lose all her light. She suppressed the urge to run away and she tightened the blanket around her. When she saw Wu Yan sleeping soundly, she sighed in relief. Her face is still as red as ever. Coterie was embarrassed when she recalled yesterday's craziness. It's not that she didn't think she would have such a day, but she didn't think her first time would be in the living room on the sofa. This made Coterie feel all kinds of shame, all kinds of unbearable shame. It's all because of this despicable brother. Coterie glared fiercely at her older brother. Her brother's joyful sleeping posture was imprinted in her watery eyes. While she was furious, she also felt a little powerless. In the end, she was being shy while the one who was playing the naughty trick was sleeping soundly. What the hell was going on? Coterie bitterly smiled and she sighed. She struggled free from Wu Yan's arm around her waist and she wanted to leave. But the doorbell rang at this time. Coterie-tan. Sensei. Good morning. Nagisa's cheerful voice entered Coterie's ears. It's almost time to go to school, Sensei. Rustle, rustle, rustle. Nagisa. Coterie panicked. She hurriedly got up, picked up the clothes on the ground and ran back to her room. But before she could do anything, another voice was heard. It was a weak male voice. It was Koju's voice. The door isn't locked. As soon as he said that, a soft cracking sound came from the door and Coterie froze on the spot. It's true. It was Yukina's voice. Why isn't the door locked? Well, Koju said casually. Who knows? The door was slowly pushed open under Coterie's stiff gaze. Koju's figure gradually appeared outside the door. He only spoke when he had one foot in the door. I'm coming in. Wait, senpai. Kojo-kun, don't enter someone else's home. Nagisa and Yukaina wanted to stop him, but it was too late. Koju had already walked into the living room and turned his head around. In a second, Koju's gaze would sweep across the living room and he would see the intimate scene between the two, including Coterie, who has exposed her bare shoulders. At this critical moment, Coterie's eyes turned sharp. She quickly grabbed the 2 hairpins she used to fix the curtains on the table and threw them at Koju's eyes with all her strength without using her sprite form. Koju only had time to hear a slight sound as a pair of hairpins pierced his eyes. His vision turned dark as he felt a sharp pain in his eyes. He let out a miserable scream and fell to the ground. What's wrong, senpai? Kojo-kun. Nagisa and Yukaina jumped in fright when they heard Koju's scream. Panicked footsteps were heard and before Coterie could stop them, 2 figures appeared in the living room. Coterie's face turned as red as blood. Senpai Kojo-kun. Nagisa and Yukaina were stunned when they saw Koju rolling around on the floor. They were also stunned when they saw the messy clothes on the floor and the sofa. Coterie. Nagisa and Yukaina. The 3 girls stared at each other. They didn't say anything. The atmosphere was eerily silent. Nagisa. Coterie felt her throat dry up, but she still forced a smile. She tightened the blanket around her and let out a laugh that sounded worse than crying. It's not what you think. There are many, many reasons. Nagisa and Yukaina stayed silent. They looked at Coterie, who is blushing as she stuttered her words. Then they looked at Wu Yan, who is snoring next to her. Their clothes were scattered all over the floor, including their undergarments. Their gazes swept across the room in a single second. Anyone with a bit of experience would be able to guess what was going on. Unfortunately, Nagisa and Yukaina were only 14 or 15 years old, but they were at the age where they started to understand what was going on between a man and a woman. Their cute faces turned red. Nagisa and Yukina's eyes were filled with embarrassment and anger. Then, Nagisa screamed and ran away without looking back. Jishua Yukaina was so embarrassed that she wanted to die. She hesitated for a while, then bowed to Coterie and yelled, "Excuse me." She grabbed Koju, who was still screaming and couldn't open his eyes, and ran out as well. She didn't care about the unconscious Koju, who was slamming his head against the wall and door. Not long after, from the apartment, a sorrowful cry soared into the sky, soaring up into the sky. It's not like that. Chapter 907. Inside the tram traveling at a constant speed, Wu Yan yawned loudly, looking like he didn't get enough sleep. He sighed as he looked out of the tram window at the bright noon sky. Itagami Island's mornings sure are different. In other places this kind of light and temperature would only appear in the afternoon, right? His casual remark was meant to start a conversation, but after waiting for a long time he didn't get anyone to talk to him. Wu Yan stopped yawning. He frowned and looked at the seats in front of him. Nagisa and Yukaina were sitting there. Unlike before, their cheeks were rosy and their heads were lowered. They didn't say a word. Wu Yan found it strange. Yukina's reaction was normal, she's not the talkative type. But Nagisa's reaction was strange. This child is unusually talkative. Perhaps in the past, Nagisa would be more reserved in front of him. Due to her fear of demons, she would subconsciously avoid him. But after spending some time together, even though Nagisa still doesn't dare to get too close to him, her words are no different from her usual self. Could it be that Nagisa had finally accepted him, only to revert back to her original state? He blinked his eyes. Wu Yan couldn't help but ask, "What's wrong with you two? You look weird." Nagisa and Yukaina tensed up when they heard Wu Yan's question. Their blush deepened. Wu Yan found it even more strange. "Are you feeling unwell?" "A fever." Puzzled, Wu Yan moved his head closer to the two girls. The two girls shrieked and they quickly left their seats. With a series of footsteps they left Wu Yan. Wu Yan's mouth twitched. He couldn't stay calm. "What are you two doing? Did I do something wrong?" Wu Yan is certain that something happened between Nagisa and Yukaina. No, it should be more accurate to say that they discovered something. Otherwise, Yukaina wouldn't be the only one. Nagisa might have distanced herself from Wu Yu, but her reaction wouldn't have been this big. Wu Yu had been paying attention to not provoke Nagisa, and the distance just now was within Nagisa's acceptable range. "What's wrong with you two?" Nagisa and Yukaina lowered their heads in embarrassment. However, they didn't seem to have any intention of walking back. They still maintained a certain distance from Wu Yan. Then two comments that Wu Yan couldn't accept came out of their mouths. "Pervert. Pervert. Huh." Wu Yan opened his mouth wide in shock. Even his eyes couldn't help but stare blankly. "Why?" "Humph." Yukaina snorted. She didn't explain herself. He found a seat to the side and sat down. Only Nagisa stood there and hesitated for a moment before asking, "What's the matter?" "Sensei, Nagisa wants to ask you a question. You must answer honestly." When she said this, Nagisa's face was solemn, but her cheeks were flushed, which made her look even cuter. Wu Yan felt weird about it, but he nodded anyway. "Ask away, I'll tell you everything I can." Nagisa was afraid Wu Yan would change his mind. She nodded vigorously. "You and Kotori-chan are siblings, right?" "Of course." Wu Yan nodded without hesitation. Then. Nagisa took a deep breath. This time she looked nervous. "Are you biological siblings?" Yukaina perked up her ears at this question. Wu Yan looked confused, but he still answered honestly. "Not really, Kotori is kind of my little sister, my godsister." Wu Yan chuckled in his heart. He added, "in various ways." However, Wu Yan's answer caused Nagisa's expression to crumble. Yukina's expression also looked much better. "What? So you're not biological siblings?" Wu Yan's head is full of question marks when he saw how relaxed the two are. "Why do you look relieved when we're not biological siblings? Why do you look like you can't accept it when we're biological siblings?" "Oh no." Nagisa and Yukaina quickly shook their heads. "Sensei, you're thinking too much." Yeah. After that, the two girls ignored Wu Yan, who is still scratching his head, and started chatting with each other. By the way, even if their performance returned to normal, they still didn't return to Wu Yan's side. Wu Yan raised an eyebrow, he's speechless. He turned to Koju, who is standing beside him. "What's going on with them?" "I don't know." Wu Yan isn't sure if it's just his imagination, but he felt like Koju's tone is filled with resentment. "I was attacked by an unknown force and I'm still angry about it." "What are you talking about?" "Nothing." "I forget it. Why do you keep rubbing your eyes?" "I told you I don't know." And just like that, the trolley bus ride came to an end with Wu Yan scratching his head in confusion. Itagami Island, Saikai Academy. It was still early and there was still some time before classes officially started. At the entrance of Kaihai Academy, uniformed students were walking on the road one after another. When they entered the school, the vitality that belonged to the students was very obvious here, making some teachers feel as if they had become much younger. Nagisa, Yukaina, and Koju entered the school together. Koju is in the high school division while Nagisa and Yukaina are in the middle school division. Wu Yan is also teaching in the middle school division, so the three of them decided to separate from Koju. At this moment, an immature yet dignified voice floated in front of the four of them. The four of you coming to school together is quite an unexpected combination. Wu Yan and the other three were startled. They looked up and saw a petite girl with long straight hair dressed in a black goth costume holding a black lace fan. She looked at the four of them with an inexplicable smile. Ahaha. Wu Yan laughed dryly and mumbled. What could be more surprising than a teacher who is less than 1.5 meters tall and 26 years old? Natsuki. The three of them could not help but burst into laughter when they heard this. Even Nayu had to choke back her laughter. The smile in her eyes vanished as she snorted coldly. Well, now that I think about it, this combination is more suitable than expected. A perverted senior who laid his hands on a junior and a perverted teacher who laid her hands on a student. Who laid her hands on a student? Koju shouted angrily. As a teacher, don't say weird things like that, Natsuki-chan. As soon as she said that, Natsuki smacked Koju's head with her fan, causing the half-baked ancestor to rub his head in a tragic manner. Don't add the word chan to a teacher's name. Natsuki looked at Koju with an extremely dissatisfied expression. Koju, who had suffered another heavy blow, could only nod with an aggrieved expression. Wu Yan was surprised and looked at Natsuki with a half-smile. Natsuki-chan, that sounds nice. If you dare to call me that, you're dead. Natsuki looked at Wu Yan with an expressionless face. However, the anger and threat in her eyes are clear as day. If you don't want to be an attack mage trainee for the rest of your life, forget what just happened. Okay. Wu Yan raised his hands in surrender. I promise I won't call you that. Natsuki nodded in satisfaction. She turned around and walked back to the school building. She said to Wu Yan, "Oh right, come find me tonight." "Oh," Natsuki said. Nagisa and Yukaina looked at Wu Yan like he was an animal. Wu Yan's heart skipped a beat. Is there something you need?" "Yes. Of course I have something to talk to you about." Natsuki didn't care about the curious gazes around her and left after saying that. "There's work, don't be late." Chapter 908. Nighttime. Nighttime in Itagami Island isn't peaceful. Demons are mostly active at night. After all, during the day they have to undergo research in Itagami City. Nocturnal demons are quite common among the demons, especially the vampires. They prefer to be active at night. Therefore, even though Itagami City's nighttime isn't considered the demon realm, the exposure rate of demons at night is much higher than during the day. Naturally, the nighttime when there are a large number of demons moving about is a lot less peaceful. However, this isn't the real problem of Itagami Island's nighttime. The real problem is that at this time of the year, the criminals are also unusually active. Tonight, in a dilapidated warehouse at the edge of the artificial island Itagami Island, a group of beastmen from the demon race are having an undisclosed meeting. Standing at a vantage point in the warehouse, Wu Yan's wine-red eyes seemed to be able to see the secret meetings going on in the distance. He didn't know how long it took before he looked at Natsuki, who is standing beside him with a parasol in hand. "It's not the right time to do so. Is this the job you were talking about?" Natsuki nodded in agreement. Her deep blue eyes sparkled in the darkness of the night like a pair of stars, beautiful as a painting. "Don't think this is just a small meeting." Natsuki glanced at Wu Yan with a gaze that could see through his thoughts. She spoke in a flat voice. "It's just a group of beastmen having an illegal activity. It's not something that requires us to show up. However, the beastmen there aren't ordinary people. Black Death Emperor faction." Natsuki's gem-like eyes flickered. He sounded a little concerned. "That's a group of extremist beastmen. Their ultimate goal is to kill the first true ancestor and seize control of his territory. They want to break the Treaty of Sanctum." Wu Yan felt a little relieved after hearing Natsuki's explanation. The Treaty of Sanctum is the treaty that maintains the coexistence between humans and demons. It's the foundation of the Demon Special District. If the Treaty of Sanctum is broken. In that case, humans and demons no longer got along well, and demons no longer appeared in people's lives openly was secondary. If the impact was serious, it was very likely that the demons and humans would become enemies from now on. It might even trigger a war between humans and demons. In other words, the actions of this Black Death Emperor faction, the existence of the Demon Special District, the existence of Itagami City, and even the entire situation. I have no choice but to take this seriously. His expression gradually turned grave. Wu Yan's eyes also became serious. Seeing him like this, Natsuki laughed and shook her head. Even though the opponent is Black Death Emperor faction, you don't have to be so serious. The ones here are just the lower level members. Plus, even if Black Death Emperor faction is here, Itagami City isn't a place that can be easily bullied. Natsuki paused and looked deeply at Wu Yan. I also don't think that the Black Death Emperor faction has the ability to make you take them seriously. Wu Yan's expression crumbled. He rolled his eyes at Natsuki, but she only chuckled. Our goal this time is to take down the Black Death Emperor faction's officers. It would be best if we can get information from them about the mastermind behind this riot, Christopher Kardashian. The location of Gardos. Natsuki raised her head, her voice became low. And their goal? Wu Yan nodded. He and Natsuki looked at the warehouse in the distance. Smoke rose from the corner of the warehouse. Flames blew away the doors of the warehouse. The sound of explosions echoed. Under Wu Yan and Natsuki's gaze, the heavily armed Itagami City guards launched a surprise attack. The rusty iron pillars creaked under the weight of the heavy load, and the stacked wooden boxes swayed under the dim moonlight. Faint gunshots echoed in the air like firecrackers. The Itagami City guards are armed with special firearms and bullets. They can seal off the demon's regenerative ability and easily break through the demon's demonic energy. This time they're using special bullets specifically designed to deal with beastmen. Normal beastmen can't possibly stand a chance against the guards armed with such weapons. The walls of the warehouse were destroyed one by one. The orcs, who were once invincible in the eyes of ordinary people, could not even put up a fight against the guards. Screams of agony and gunshots rang out. The battle was over in less than 2 minutes. After the smoke dissipated, orcs could be seen lying on the ground in layers in the distant warehouse. There was no blood on their bodies, but there was light smoke rising from their bodies, indicating the damage they had suffered. The beastmen that fell here were all unregistered demons that hadn't been registered. Based on this point alone, the guards had enough reason to arrest them. Of course, they didn't die. The vitality of the orcs couldn't be compared to that of the vampires, but it was still much stronger than that of humans. It was impossible to kill them with just this level of damage. The guards could only immobilize them. At this point, the battle was basically over. The guards also started to wrap things up, intending to arrest all the orcs present. But at this moment, an uninjured leopard-headed orc with a robust body and neat black fur suddenly jumped out, roaring angrily as he escaped from the scene. Not good. We missed something. Chase him. A commotion broke out at the scene. Natsuki, who was standing at the top of the warehouse, exclaimed in surprise. Then she started mocking him. I didn't think you'd have the ability to escape from a hail of bullets. Black Death Emperor faction, I'll give you some praise. Natsuki raised her parasol and said to Wu Yan. Let's go, we'll catch the fish that escaped the net. Wu Yan nodded lightly. Just as he was about to take a step forward, his body stopped abruptly. His eyes flashed with a hint of emotion as he turned his head to the side. What's wrong? Natsuki stopped when she saw Wu Yan's reaction. She turned around and followed Wu Yan's gaze. Natsuki was stunned by what she saw. In front of their eyes, a large yacht is slowly moving in the middle of the sea. The yacht is much larger than an average ship. It looks luxurious, like a noble on a cruise. The yacht is heading towards Itagami Island. That ship. Natsuki frowned, her expression changed for a split second. Wu Yan saw this and he asked her in a soft voice. Do you know that yacht? Natsuki stared at the yacht for a long time before she pursed her lips. Rather than saying I know the yacht, I know what's on it. Natsuki shifted her gaze to Wu Yan after she finished speaking. What? Are you interested? Well, you can say that. Wu Yan chuckled in an unreadable tone. There seems to be an incredible existence on that yacht. Indeed, that guy isn't simple. Natsuki didn't deny it and met Wu Yan's gaze. Don't tell me you want to meet him? Wu Yan pondered for a moment and shrugged with a smile. You can say that. I'm interested in an existence that can make my blood flow a little more active. Active? Natsuki narrowed her eyes and said seriously. Just active? Wu Yan didn't answer Natsuki, he waved at her. I'll leave that to you, I'll go take a look. Wu Yan disappeared after saying that. Natsuki stood there quietly. She ignored the fleeing beastman. She kept looking at the direction Wu Yan disappeared in. Her eyes were filled with emotions that no one could tell what she was thinking. Active, is it? Nayu muttered as if she was sleep-talking. Not long after, Nayu returned to her original state. She turned around and faced the direction of the escaping beastmen. That guy is also a vampire, but he can only make your blood flow more active. Wu Yan, I'm getting more and more curious about what kind of existence you are. After all, he's said to be the closest existence to a true ancestor. Chapter 909. In the middle of the night, a large yacht broke through the waves and slowly approached the man-made island called Itagami City. Oceanus Grave. That's the name of the yacht. At this time, on the deck of the yacht, a Western-style handsome man wearing a white suit, with short blonde hair and a pair of blue pupils stood at the forefront. Looking at the gradually approaching coast, a strange smile appeared on his face. It's an excited and bloodthirsty smile. Is that the Demon Special District, Itagami City? The handsome man's lips curled up, greed flashed in his eyes. That's right, greed, as if he's thirsting for something. The fourth primogenitor, Akatsuki Koju, is on that island? After taking one last look at Itagami City, the handsome man shifted his gaze away. He didn't come here for the demon race, but for the existence known as the strongest vampire in the world. Itagami Island, in his eyes, without the fourth primogenitor, it doesn't matter whether it exists or not. Compared to his fief, Itagami City doesn't have much to show for it. The handsome man is the envoy of Europe's War King domain. The first primogenitor, the Forgotten War King, bestowed the title of Duke of Arudiaro. He's also a direct descendant of the first primogenitor. He's a pure-blood vampire. And a pure-blooded vampire from the old generation. Of course. His strength was much stronger than ordinary pure-blooded vampires of the old generation. This was because he was one of the very few vampires who possessed special abilities. It was also because of this special ability that he was extremely powerful. He even used this ability to devour two second-generation vampire elders. In terms of bloodline, he's second only to the primogenitor. In terms of strength, he's the closest to the primogenitor. No matter how you look at it, he's the number one vampire below the primogenitor. That's why he's the first primogenitor's most trusted aide. He's also the first primogenitor's trusted aide. Unfortunately, he didn't come to Itagami City on the orders of his king, he came for selfish reasons. Raise your hand. The handsome man swirled the wine in his hand. The scarlet-red wine followed his movements and rose and fell with the waves under the yacht, creating circles of bloody ripples, as if indicating the arrival of a bloody storm. The atmosphere in the room is a little eerie. At a certain moment, the pretty boy's hand movements suddenly stopped. His originally calm eyes once again flashed with a trace of emotion. An interesting smile appeared on his face as he slowly turned around. Before he knew it, a figure had appeared in front of him. The pretty boy was absolutely certain that there hadn't been anything there at all a second ago. The figure appeared out of thin air and stared at him with a pair of wine-red eyes. There was not the slightest fluctuation on his face, but in his eyes, there was the same expression as the pretty boy. That expression was interesting. The newcomer is Wu Yan. Was that a spatial teleportation magic? The handsome man chuckled. Are you sure? Wu Yan looked at the handsome man. Maybe it's a space-type superpower, or maybe it's atomization. Unfortunately, I know a witch who specializes in this kind of magic. The handsome man shook his head. That's why I'm quite familiar with spatial teleportation magic. Wu Yan raised an eyebrow and shrugged, acknowledging the handsome man's words. The handsome man's interest was piqued. If I'm not mistaken, you're a vampire, right? The handsome man asked with interest. I've never heard of a vampire who can use spatial teleportation magic to such an extent. If you hear about it, I am going to have a headache. Wu Yan pursed his lips. I see. The handsome man didn't mind, he continued with a smile. Then you are. Wu Yan's lips curled into a mocking smile. As you said, I'm a vampire. Then what's your purpose? Wu Yan crossed his arms in front of his chest. I'm just here to take a look. The handsome man narrowed his eyes, he stared at Wu Yan for a while, the interest in his eyes turned into displeasure. He didn't think he could get any information from Wu Yan, he waved his hand impatiently, his movements were quite elegant. If that's the case, it's about time for you to leave, nameless vampire. With that, a surge of mana surged from the handsome man's body. Then a giant snake radiating purple light and a scorching heat came out of the magic vortex. It shot out like an arrow without any warning, it opened its huge jaws and bit at Wu Yan. Translator's thoughts: Noodletown, 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 Noodletown. The serpent's level of magic was far from being a familiar of a pure-blooded vampire, let alone a familiar of a vampire that was close to a true ancestor. A familiar of this level is nothing more than a random item the handsome man released. However, even if it was a weaker vampire from the old generation, he would still be half dead after taking a hit from it. If a human was hit by it, let alone an ordinary human, even a powerful attack mage would not be able to escape death. Obviously, in the pretty boy's eyes, Wu Yan is just a stray dog that barked a few times during a journey. Since there's no way to interest him, then he's free to go, there's no need for the owner's approval. The reason he released his familiar is because he doesn't want to talk to Wu Yan anymore. He wants to chase him away, that's all. As for Wu Yan's survival, it has nothing to do with him. As the closest vampire to a primogenitor, the blood on his hands is enough to form a lake. Even if it's not enough to form an ocean, killing one or two of his kind is nothing to him. But this time the handsome man miscalculated. The person in front of him did appear out of nowhere, but he's not a stray dog. In terms of bloodline, the handsome man is of a higher rank than the vampire closest to a primogenitor. That's because the handsome man is a true primogenitor. Looking at the menacing serpent coming at him with the momentum of a mountain, the mana ripples it emits are much stronger than a high-level magician's. But to the handsome man it's nothing but trash. To Wu Yan it's trash among trash. Wu Yan didn't even bother to look at the snake, he didn't even bother to move his hands. He stood there motionlessly. Wu Yan's mana was so dense that the pretty boy who was about to turn away froze in place. Wu Yan's mana burst out from his body and he rammed into the giant snake like a wall that collided with a wall. Boom! There was no stalemate, no collision. The serpent was crushed into pieces by the sheer amount of mana. Not even a trace of mana was left behind, it was crushed into nothingness. The handsome man's eyes widened when he saw this. His gaze landed on Wu Yan. This is the first time he's looking at the handsome man since Wu Yan appeared. Although the familiars were nothing to him, his opponent didn't even need to use them. Instead, he used his mana to neutralize the familiars. It was obvious who was stronger in this simple exchange of blows. You. Seeing that the pretty boy is finally looking at him in the eye, Wu Yan lost interest. He had only come here to see what kind of existence could make his blood throb a little. And now he had seen this person, and from the beautiful man's words and Na Yu's words, he could guess that Na Yu definitely knew him. As for the rest, he'll just have to ask Natsuki when he gets back. With that in mind, Wu Yan didn't feel like staying any longer. What a rude way to send a guest off. Well, I've achieved my goal. I'll leave even if you don't send me off. With that, Wu Yan planned to leave. But this time it's the handsome man who won't let him go. Please forgive my rudeness. The pretty boy said such a sentence without the slightest bit of apology. His tone was full of fanatical fighting spirit. Since you're here, why don't you stay and have some fun? Isn't it interesting? Chapter 9-10. Interesting, isn't it? Unlike his previous tone, which was like a formality at this moment, the pretty boy's words carried a clear fanaticism that reverberated back and forth along with his voice, sending chills down one's spine. It was as if he had found something very valuable and did not conceal his thoughts at all. His eyes were filled with a glint of pleasant surprise. It was obvious that the pretty boy had completely taken note of this vampire who had appeared out of nowhere. Wu Yan was just about to teleport away when he heard the other party's words. His mana stopped moving and he frowned as he looked at the pretty boy. When he saw the fervent fighting spirit in the pretty boy's eyes, he bitterly laughed. I almost forgot that you're an old vampire as well. The lifespan of a vampire was too long. For those old generation vampires who had lived for an unknown amount of time and were bored to death, fighting was a very good way to pass the time. The handsome man in front of him was one of them. Looking straight at the pretty boy with a smile on his face, Wu Yan shook his head. In his eyes, the system's perception flashed. Dmitrii? Vatler, level 83. The handsome man Vatler didn't know his identity was exposed. He opened his arms as if he wanted to hug the ocean. He smiled brightly. My name is Dmitrii. Vatler, I was fortunate enough to receive the title of Duke of Arudia from my ancestor, the Forgotten Warlord. Nice to meet you, unknown vampire. Vatler, you seem quite famous. Wu Yan smirked as he waved his hand. I don't have a background as big as yours. Well, just call me Wu Yan. Wu Yan. Vatler lowered his head as he tried to recall if he had heard this name before. Of course, he couldn't remember anything about it. However, that didn't stop the fanaticism in his heart. It didn't matter if he was famous or not. He didn't mind if Vatler wanted the title of Duke. As long as Vatler had the power to make him happy, anything was fine. I'll remember your name for now. Vatler looked up. The golden bangs in front of his forehead drew an arc of light. His smile was full of excitement. As for whether I'll remember it or not. His voice grew louder. Vatler laughed. That depends on whether you can survive or not. Mana surged out of the white suit, and the sudden burst of mana caused the fragile deck to crack. The scale of the mana was at least 10 times stronger than the familiar he released earlier. Once he decided to attack, Vatler wouldn't show any mercy. As a battle maniac, this was the most basic principle of his life. Saga. Vatler called out. The familiar in his blood awakened and took form in his mana. Orochi coiled out of his body like a sea serpent covered in blue scales. Its sinister snake eyes stared at Wu Yan's as it hissed. Hiss! The screeching sound turned into a sonic wave. Along with the turbulent airflow, it blasted at Wu Yan. His hooded black coat fluttered in the wind, his hair fluttered in the wind. Around him, pieces of the deck started cracking as the pieces were sent flying. They broke through the air and landed on the hull of the ship behind him. Like bullets, they shot holes in the hull with smoke coming out of them. Only a familiar like this was worthy of the title of the strongest vampire below the primogenitor. Saw. Vatler licked his lips as a cruel smile appeared on his face. Let's begin. Leisure activities for the journey. His hair and clothes fluttered in the wind. Wu Yan ignored the wind that could blow a giant away. His gaze was fixed on the sea serpent familiar. He sized it up and smiled. Looks like this trip wasn't all for nothing. Unlike Vatler's violent mana, Wu Yan's mana surged like water from a dam. It enveloped his entire body. At least I can confirm that you're no ordinary vampire, Vatler. Same to you. His smile widened then turned cold. Go, Saga. Hiss. The blue sea serpent hissed. Vatler's mana surged. The sea serpent opened its mouth and shot out a high-pressure jet of water. It reached Wu Yan in the blink of an eye. Wu Yan narrowed his eyes. His body shifted. Bang. The mana around him twisted and turned into a white flame. It replaced the flow of mana and protected Wu Yan. Chi. The high-pressure water flow hit the white flame head-on. The collision of water and fire made a slight sound. Thick white smoke rolled up from the contact between the two at an extremely fast speed. In a moment it had already spread to the entire deck. In an instant the entire huge yacht was shrouded in white smoke. Vatler's body flickered with blue mana and blew away the smoke. He raised an eyebrow when he saw Wu Yan's white flame. He managed to block Saga's attack without even using his familiars? Or is the flame your familiar? Vatler's face didn't reveal the slightest bit of doubt as he asked the question. Instead there was only joy on his face. Which one is it? The white flames enveloped Wu Yan's body in a gentle manner. His unfathomable smile could be clearly seen in the flames. Why don't you take a guess, Vatler? Just what I wanted. Vatler grinned. The blue light around him expanded. Nonto. Bonontua. Amidst the blue light, two serpent bodies armed with sharp blades appeared amidst the distortion of magic power and entangled with each other. Controlling 3 familiars at once. Wu Yan narrowed his eyes. His expression turned serious. Most vampires could only control one familiar beast at a time. This was the same for older vampires. As the host grew, the familiar beasts would grow as well. Only a small number of powerful vampires could summon 2 familiar beasts at once. As for controlling 3 at once, not even pure-blooded vampires of the older generation can do it. This Vatler. Wu Yan sighed. Of course it wasn't out of fear. He's releasing 3 familiars on a fragile yacht. Isn't he afraid of destroying the ship? You don't have to worry about that. Vatler seemed to have heard Wu Yan's mutterings. He brushed his bangs away without a care. I still have a few good subordinates on this ship. It won't be a problem for them to protect this ship. Your Excellency, just go all out. Otherwise it will be meaningless. Well, that has nothing to do with me. Wu Yan shrugged. It's not like the ship is mine. Before he could finish his sentence, the 3 ferocious snakes opened their huge mouths one after another. Mana whirlpools fluctuated inside, and the atmosphere surged over as if the 3 snakes were devouring the air. With a swing of their bodies, 3 shockwaves swept out at the same time, bombarding the white flames. Ping! In an instant the white flames swelled slightly and wrapped around the 3 vortexes. It attacked them like sulfuric acid and completely disintegrated them. Amazing! Amazing! Vatler wasn't surprised that his attack was ineffective. Instead he covered his face and laughed maniacally. I didn't think I'd get such an amazing gift the moment I got here. Vatler's smile widened. He pulled his hand out of his pocket and raised it above his head. A strange wave of mana was emitted from his palm, instantly surging into the 2 giant snakes armed with blades. You have the right to make me use this ability. Look closely, this is the trump card I rely on to survive. Vatler laughed excitedly. 2 giant snakes armed with blades flew into the sky. Their slender bodies intertwined with each other and they merged into a flaming silver dragon under Wu Yan's astonished gaze. The silver dragon hissed at Wu Yan. Fused familiars. Wu Yan was shocked. Chapter 9:11. On the rooftop deck of the huge luxury yacht, a silver dragon burning with flames and a sea serpent glowing with blue light lined up together. The lower end of their bodies coiled around the hull of the yacht, while the upper end swung back and forth. Their huge mouths opened and closed, letting out roars that shook the atmosphere. Wu Yan stared at the roaring silver dragon in front of him. He could feel a tremendous amount of mana coursing through the dragon's body. The sea around the yacht churned violently. The scale of the mana wasn't as great as that of a primogenitor, but it wasn't something a pure-blooded vampire of the old generation could possess. A familiar fusion. Wu Yan sighed. He finally understood why a vampire who wasn't a primogenitor could make his primogenitor blood throb. With the ability to fuse familiars, Vatler had surpassed ordinary vampires. He was close to the level of a primogenitor. If not for his bloodline, if Vatler was a primogenitor, then with his ability to fuse familiars, he would be the strongest vampire outside of the 4th primogenitor who had awakened. Vatler. Wu Yan repeated the name several times. He chuckled. It was a strange laugh. Hiss. As though it was infuriated by Wu Yan's laughter, Silver Dragon shot out of its body without any warning. Its flaming body was like a train on fire. Amidst the sonic booms that caused the air to tremble, it charged forward like a meteor falling from the sky. It was heading straight for Vatler. Wu Yan finally made his move in the face of the familiar's attack. Raising his right hand, the mana in his body flowed faster along with his blood flow. The white flames on his body rippled like water and surged towards Wu Yan's hand. At this moment, the color of the white flames on his hand turned darker and darker. But it was like swatting a mosquito. The hand covered in white flames swatted across the air. In an extremely casual manner, it slammed into the huge body of the fused familiar. The silver dragon's roar came to an abrupt halt. Its ferocious eyes still reflected Wu Yan's figure. The white flames on its hand burned fiercely. Vatler charged towards the silver dragon. The white flames on its body completely replaced the flames on its body. Then the familiar disappeared. That's right. It disappeared. Ugh. Vatler's pupils shrank. He couldn't react in time. Suddenly, he let out a muffled groan as if he had suffered a heavy blow. The magic power in his body leaked out. That flame. Vatler's gaze landed on the white flames in Wu Yan's hand. He finally realized how extraordinary they were. You fused my familiar. Vatler's frenzied expression was gone. Vatler's eyes flashed like lightning as he stared at Wu Yan. Who are you? Are you? Vatler's unique ability was to fuse familiars. It was because of this ability that he was able to subdue 2 second-generation vampire elders with superior bloodlines. Otherwise, with the strict bloodline hierarchy of vampires, challenging someone with a superior bloodline was a death sentence. After all, blood was a vampire's power. Without this ability, vampires with lower bloodlines were no match for vampires with higher bloodlines. But now Vatler had the highest bloodline below a true ancestor and had fused with familiars. Apart from a true ancestor, no other vampire could be stronger than him. Wu Yan, on the other hand, can wipe out his familiar. This proved that either he also had a special ability, or his bloodline was far superior to his. A primogenitor. Only a primogenitor could have a higher bloodline than Vatler. But that was impossible. There were only 4 primogenitors. Wu Yan couldn't help but snicker when he saw Vatler wavering. His snicker woke Vatler up. Vatler clenched his teeth, his expression turning cold. A surge of destructive mana, much stronger than when he fused with the familiar, gushed out of his body. Sagara. Nando. Bonantuo. Amidst the cold voice, the blue sea snake and the twin snakes armed with blades appeared out of thin air. They coiled around Vatler's violent magic flow and intertwined with each other. A dazzling light flashed and the 3 giant snakes fused together. A 4-legged golden horn dragon slowly emerged from the light. Vatler had fused with 3 familiars. You win if you take it. Vatler declared coldly. It was as if he had removed all emotions from his voice, but at the same time, it seemed to contain some unknown emotion. If you can't take it, then die. There were only 4 primogenitors in this world. It was impossible for a 5th primogenitor to exist. However, it wasn't a problem for Vatler to find out who his opponent was. It didn't matter if the vampire in front of him was a primogenitor or not. If he really was a primogenitor, then he should be able to take on Vatler's 3 fused familiars at full power. If he wasn't, then he would die here. It was that simple. Vatler was confident that only a primogenitor could take on his fused familiars. If his opponent was a vampire with the same special ability as him, then he wouldn't be unharmed even if he took on the attack. At that time, the heavily injured opponent would have no choice but to allow himself to be killed. That was indeed the case. Wu Yan's expression changed when he sensed the violent mana from the golden dragon. A familiar of this level isn't far from a primogenitor's level. If he doesn't use his full power, it'll be as Vatler said. He'll die if he can't take on the attack. Though as a primogenitor he can't die. Fused familiars. Wu Yan shook his head and chuckled. The fusion of 3 familiars is already a lot stronger than Koju, who only has 1 familiar. Wu Yan can't afford to be careless. Well, that's fine too. The white flame on his hand slowly extinguished. Wu Yan lifted his head and he looked at the golden dragon that blocked his vision. A thick mist of blood rose from his body. Vatler's expression changed when he sensed a monstrous amount of mana. I've never released you before. Wu Yan closed his eyes as if he's talking to someone. Let's enjoy ourselves today. Wu Yan abruptly opened his eyes. Inside his eyes, his golden pupils burned with a radiant light like a torch. Descend. The sound, which was as thin as a drop of water, vibrated slightly and turned into an echo that spread out. On the yacht sailing in the dark sea, suddenly, a burst of white flames erupted like a tidal wave pouring down from the sky. Boom, the roar that shook the heavens and earth, with the yacht as the center, brought along a frenzied atmosphere and turned into an impact that could destroy everything. It landed on the entire ocean like thunder. In an instant, a circle of waves that were more than 10 meters high suddenly exploded and swept in all directions, causing the sea level to drop a little. It was like a volcanic eruption. After an unknown amount of time, the surface of the sea returned to calm. The turbulence in the atmosphere also subsided. The white flames disappeared, revealing the yacht within. Miraculously, the white flames did not burn the fragile yacht into nothingness. It wasn't that it couldn't do it, it just didn't want to. It was as if nothing had happened at all. On the deck of the yacht, Wu Yan is no longer there. Vatler is the only one left. However, he doesn't look as carefree as before. His clothes are tattered and his skin is rotten. The skin on his face is gone. All that's left is a bloody, tattered body that looked like it was skinned alive. Ha ha ha. Vatler didn't care about his recovering body. He laughed like a madman. His laughter was filled with joy and mockery. The fifth primogenitor. Spitting out blood, Vatler ignored his panicked subordinates who ran in from the entrance. He used a voice that only he could hear and a laughter that everyone could hear. He laid on the deck covered in blood and laughed like a madman. The yacht is still cruising towards Itagami Island. Chapter 9:12. Huge waves came crashing down on the streets of Itagami Island's harbor. The salty water washed away the heavy metal crates and washed away the smoke in the air. Then the waves slowly receded and returned to the sea. Standing on top of a high-end metal box, Natsuki held a parasol and looked at the yacht that had just burst into flames with a familiar color. She watched as the yacht gradually sailed over, and her blue eyes flashed with an unpredictable light. Behind her, on top of a metal bridge, a leopard-shaped beastman was locked in place by glowing purple chains. The chains swayed left and right like a pendulum. Don't think that it was just a glowing chain. It was a chain forged by the gods and was called the Chain of Discipline. It wasn't impossible to break free from it, but without strength equal to or above Nayu, it was almost impossible to break free, let alone an ordinary orc. Therefore, Nayu wasn't worried that the orc would escape. However, the reason she didn't pay attention to the captured beastman isn't because she believes in her chains of discipline. Compared to the beastman, what's happening in front of her is more important. Natsuki watched as the white flames dissipated. She tightened her grip on the parasol. Her eyes are calm but her brows are furrowed. Natsuki expected Wu Yen to fight with the snake charmer Vatler when he planned to board the yacht. However, the magical energy she sensed from the yacht still made her nervous. In terms of strength, Natsuki is definitely on the same level as Vatler. Vatler is an immortal, pure-blooded vampire from the old generation. Natsuki isn't a normal person either. She's a witch. She can form a contract with a demon and become their guardian. She can use the same abilities as the demon. As a human, she can gain magical energy that can rival a superior demon. His magic skills could even surpass the highest level of magicians. Natsuki is such an existence. He might really fight. Vatler, who can fuse with familiars, should be stronger than Natsuki. However, he won't be able to do anything to her. It was also because of this that Natsuki knew how strong Vatler was. If Wu Yen were to fight him, even if Natsuki saw Wu Yen summon two terrifying familiars, she can't say for sure that Wu Yen can beat Vatler. After all, Vatler is the strongest vampire below the level of a primogenitor. Wu Yen is also a vampire. It's not impossible for him to beat Vatler. However, Natsuki doesn't think it's possible unless he's a primogenitor. He has to be a complete primogenitor, unlike Koju who hasn't fully awakened. But is that possible? Nayu did not say a word. She simply stood there and looked at the yacht until a voice sounded from behind her. "Oh, you're done?" "Too slow," Natsuki said without hesitation. "Don't you know we still have work to do?" "Well." Wu Yen scratched his face. "I didn't have a choice. You know that Vatler is no ordinary vampire." Natsuki snorted and turned around. She raised an eyebrow when she saw Wu Yen unharmed. "Look at you, I don't see how much effort you put in." "We should thank them for that." Wu Yen couldn't help but grin at this point. "I thought I understood them well enough. I didn't expect them to be stronger than I expected. Without them, I wouldn't have been able to beat Vatler without paying a price." Natsuki narrowed her eyes. She looked at Wu Yen with an unfathomable gaze. "You're saying you can beat Vatler even without familiars?" Wu Yan's smile froze. He looked at Natsuki. "Would you believe me if I said yes? Vampires' strength lies in their ability to control familiars. Without familiars, vampires are nothing." Now Wu Yen is saying that he can defeat Vatler, the vampire closest to a primogenitor, even without a familiar. He might even become a laughingstock if this gets out. Natsuki couldn't bring herself to smile. Natsuki lowered her head in silence. Wu Yen looked at her without saying anything. At some point, Natsuki pursed her lips and walked towards the beast man. "It doesn't matter if you believe me or not, just don't cause trouble for me." Wu Yen blinked and shrugged. The beast man who was hanging on the bridge was slowly released by the chains that seemed to have a mind of their own. He collapsed in front of Wu Yan and Natsuki. Natsuki knocked on her parasol when she saw the leopard-headed beast man. When we get back, let's have the guards interrogate it and see if they can find out why the Black Death Emperor faction is here. Interrogate? Wu Yan rubbed his chin and he suddenly said. Rather than letting the guards interrogate him who might not be able to get anything out of him, why don't I do it? You. Natsuki flinched. She asked in confusion. You know how to interrogate? I don't know how to interrogate. Wu Yan walked in front of the leopard-headed beastman and flicked its head. However, I do know how to read memories. You know how to read memories? Natsuki's eyes lit up. If that's the case, then the Black Death Emperor faction's purpose in coming to Itagami City might be revealed. It's not a very advanced tactic. It can only be used against opponents far weaker than the user. Wu Yan smiled at Natsuki. Now that we are using it against this average beastman, it should come in handy. Natsuki nodded and she backed off. She wanted Wu Yan to deal with this. Wu Yan didn't hesitate. He extended his hand and he closed his eyes. He started channeling his mana and a magic formation that looked like a coat of arms appeared on his palm. It glowed faintly and a magic formation that looked like an emblem appeared on his palm. Wu Yan reached out and grabbed the leopard-headed beastman's head. The faint light shone brightly. Natsuki tilted her head to avoid the blinding light. Soon the light dimmed. When Natsuki looked back, Wu Yan had let go of the leopard-headed beastman's head and opened his eyes. However, his brows were deeply furrowed. Natsuki knew that Wu Yan must have gotten his hands on some useful information. What did you get? Yes. Wu Yan nodded and looked at Natsuki. The purpose of the Black Death Emperor faction, or rather Christophe Garcia? The purpose of the Black Death Emperor faction is to obtain an ancient weapon called Nalakuvra. Wait. Natsuki interrupted Wu Yan. You said Nalakuvra? What? Wu Yan was surprised. Do you know about it? You can say that. Natsuki sounded a little concerned. It's a weapon from the Age of the Gods that has destroyed countless civilizations in the past. It's a very dangerous thing. However, it's understandable that a group of terrorists would want to get their hands on such a dangerous thing. The ancient weapon seems to be on this artificial island. Wu Yan said. The Black Death Emperor faction seems to have taken it away. They're trying to figure out how to control it. This beastman came here because of this. He cooperated with the people trying to figure out how to control it and launched a terrorist attack on Itagami Island to tell the people that the Black Death Emperor faction is still alive and well. What a terrorist. Natsuki shook her head. However, if the Black Death Emperor faction's goal is really Nalakuvra, then it's useless. The slate that records the control method is a piece of trash that even the linguists and magic organizations in the world can't decipher even if they gather together. Just in case, let's take care of those who tried to decipher the method. You should be able to retrieve their memories, right? Wu Yan nodded. Under Natsuki's lead, he left with the beastman. Along the way, Wu Yan remained silent. He has a nagging feeling that something isn't right. Chapter 9:13. Itagami Island, Southern District, Residential Street. In an average-sized apartment, Kodori was standing by a window in thin pajamas, gazing at the scenery outside. The silver moonlight shone on her, highlighting her slender figure like a painting. Her delicate and adorable face was tinged with a hint of maturity that shouldn't have appeared on her innocent face. However, it didn't seem contradictory, as if she was born this way, which was quite puzzling. The sea breeze blew in through the open window. Kodori's long hair fluttered in the wind, reflecting the darkness of the night. Her mature aura seemed to have blended into the night, looking very beautiful. This scene lasted for 10 minutes before it was broken by a slightly breathtaking voice. Kodori-chan, you're so cute. Kodori's face fell. She looked at Nagisa, who was looking at her with excitement, and shook her head. Nagisa-chan is cute too. Hey, don't say that, it's embarrassing. Nagisa blushed. She made an embarrassed expression. Kodori laughed seductively. You're the one who made fun of me first. I didn't make fun of you. Nagisa retorted. Nagisa is telling the truth. She turned around and looked at Yukaina, who was sitting across from her, and asked, Isn't that right? Isn't that right, Yukina-chan? Yeah. Yukaina nodded without hesitation. Kodori is cute. Oh. Kodori didn't deny it. She dragged her words. Her smile was seductive as usual. What about Nagisa? Nagisa is cute too. Nagisa blushed and puffed up her cheeks in embarrassment. She quickly changed the topic. You're right. You're right. You're right. You're right. Oh right, Kotori-chan, is sensei back yet? Kotori's smile faded and she nodded. He said he had work to do and went out with Natsuki. Indeed. Yukaina thought about what happened in the morning and said, this morning I was in a very bad mood. Earlier Nagisa-sensei said he had work to do. He asked Wuyen-sensei to look for him at night. It seems like it's something important. Being an attack mage is so hard. Nagisa slumped on the table listlessly. She waved her hand. Sensei is a vampire. Why did he become an attack mage? There must be a reason. Yukaina thought for a bit. Otherwise, the average demon wouldn't want to become an attack demon master. Nagisa nodded as if she understood. She asked Kotori. Even Kotori-chan doesn't know why Sensei became an attack mage? Who knows, maybe it's because vampires have too much free time. Maybe he became an attack mage to pass the time. Kotori gave an answer and sat down next to Nagisa. How old is Sensei? Nagisa stood up and asked excitedly, aren't there many vampires who look young on the surface but have lived for a long time? Sensei too? Was it because he was very old? Is he older than the old Sensei he replaced? Speaking of which, Sensei said he was 26 years old on the first day. Is that true? Don't make wild guesses. Seeing Nagisa asking questions at a rapid pace, even Kotori felt a headache coming on. Oniai-san isn't young, but he's only in his 20s. He hasn't lived as long as you think. Oh, so he's really only in his 20s. Nagisa was disappointed. Kotori didn't know whether to laugh or cry. 26 years old isn't enough to satisfy you? 26 years old. Yukaina lowered her head, her eyes flashing. A 26-year-old vampire can stop Senpai's familiar in one hit? The fourth primogenitor's familiar. 26 years old is considered young among the vampires. Even a pureblood wouldn't be able to stop a primogenitor's familiar in one hit. Let alone one hit. Koju may be the fourth primogenitor, but he's still not a complete primogenitor. Even a pureblood wouldn't be a match for a young vampire. This sensei is mysterious in all aspects. Kotori-chan is 15 years old, Wuyen-sensei is 26. Nagisa fiddled with her little finger and looked at Kotori with an odd expression. Then isn't there a 10-year age difference between the two of you? Yeah. Kotori tilted her head in confusion. Is there a problem? There's a huge problem. Nagisa jumped up in an exaggerated manner, her face turned red as she yelled. Kotori-chan is only 15 years old. 15 years old. How could Sensei do something like that to you? Something like that. Kotori was taken aback at first. When she realized what Nagisa was talking about, her face immediately turned red. She jumped up like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. Nagisa-san. It's a misunderstanding. It's not what you see. Kotori-chan. Don't try to lie to Nagisa. I'm not a child, I don't know anything. As a young girl, Nagisa was embarrassed to talk about this, but she still said. Nagisa noticed, Kotori-chan, your posture when you walked today was very wrong. Kotori was instantly dumbstruck. Her pretty face was dyed a bright rose red, and there were even tears at the corners of her eyes. She shook her head with all her might. That's. Look. Nagisa pointed at Kotori's face as if she discovered a new continent. Don't try to deny it when your face is so red. Kotori whimpered. She couldn't say anything else. She lowered her red face in frustration. Her heart was filled with hatred. It's all that damned Koju's fault. How dare he barge in like that? Does he think he can just barge in without locking the door? Do you think you're the main character? You'll get benefits for barging in. Don't let me catch you or else. Koju, who was showering in his bathroom, felt a chill down his spine. Nagisa-san. Yukaina was already embarrassed. She pulled back Nagisa, who was about to attack again. Stop it, it's so embarrassing. But I'm curious. Nagisa was shy, but her shyness didn't cover up her curiosity. She crawled to Kotori's side and asked in a mosquito-like voice. Hey Kotori-chan, how does it feel to be with your brother? Kotori let out a strange cry, and her eyes were already circling. Finally, she couldn't hold it in any longer, and her head tilted back as she fainted on the ground. Kotori. Two cries of surprise rang out from room 703 of the apartment. On the other side, in a hidden research facility. Is this the tablet that recorded the method to control Nalacuvula? Wu Yan narrowed his eyes as he handed the tablet over to Natsuki. Natsuki took out a picture of a tablet with unknown characters written all over it. Natsuki glanced at it and ignored it. Don't mind it, no one can decipher it anyway. Is that so? Wu Yan had a different opinion. If no one can decipher it, why would the Black Death Emperor faction take such a huge risk to snatch these ancient weapons that can only be used as display items? If you can understand the thoughts of terrorists, then there wouldn't be so many terrorists in the world. Natsuki shook her head and raised the photo in her hand. At the very least, I don't know who would be able to decipher something that even so many magic organizations and linguists can't. If only that were the case. Wu Yan sighed and looked at Natsuki. Natsuki, think about it again, is there really no one in Itagami Island who can decipher it? Of course not. Natsuki was about to insist, but she suddenly froze. She seemed to have thought of something and her expression froze. No, maybe someone can decipher it. What's wrong? Wu Yan asked. Did you discover something? It's just a guess. Natsuki frowned and turned to Wu Yan. Tomorrow I will continue to track Kristoff. Gardos, you will stay in school. School. Wu Yan was confused. Why do you have to stay in school? Just do as I say. Natsuki didn't explain. Looking at Natsuki's pensive expression, Wu Yan didn't want to ask any more questions, so he agreed. Chapter 9:14. Itagami Island Saikai Academy. Walking towards the school gate, Wu Yan couldn't help but yawn so hard that tears came out of his eyes. His face is full of fatigue. How can you be so tired this early in the morning? Sensei. Nagisa, who was chatting with Yukaina, glared at Wu Yan. She huffed. Get your act together, the tournament is just around the corner. Sensei, if you act like this, the students will lose their confidence. I didn't have a choice, we stayed up way too late last night. By the time we got home, we didn't have much time left to sleep. Plus, I'm not good at dealing with the morning anyway. Wu Yan scratched his cheeks, he sounded a bit helpless. Then he gestured to the side with his lips. Plus, I'm not the only one who's tired this early in the morning. Nagisa and Yukaina turned to Wu Yan's side. They saw Koju yawning while wearing a hoodie. He looked listless and the two girls were a bit annoyed. What? Sensei is a vampire. It's fine if he's tired this early in the morning, but why is Kojo-kun like this too? Nagisa ran up to Koju. She put her hands on her hips and pointed at Koju's nose. You're a high school student in the prime of your life. Don't act like an old man. Is it appropriate to call me in the prime of my life? Koju complained. He's a vampire. Am I not a vampire? What did you say? I can't hear you. It's nothing. Koju glanced at Wu Yan and he sighed in an annoyed manner. Why could Nagisa accept this vampire as her teacher but not her brother who had turned into a demon? Even if there's a difference in treatment. Does she like men who can cook that much? Nagisa must be a foodie, right? Nagisa narrowed her red eyes. She stared at Koju's face. I feel like you're thinking about something rude. You brat, do you know how to read minds? Sensei, your thoughts are too easy to read. Yukaina shook her head. She picked up her guitar bag and looked at Wu Yan, who is still yawning. She hesitated for a bit before asking. Is it a very troublesome job? Sensei looks really tired. Well, it's not really that troublesome. To be honest, last night's work was pretty easy to deal with. Wu Yan waved his hand and helplessly continued. If I didn't get into a fight with that snake charmer, I might have been able to go home earlier. Snake charmer? Slapping his cheeks, Wu Yan tried his best to cheer himself up. He's a very troublesome fellow in all aspects. Speaking of which, Wu Yan recalled what Natsuki said to him last night. He lowered his voice and he told Yukaina. Something might happen in our school recently. Jijua, you should pay more attention to it. Yukaina said. Yukina's expression froze and she moved closer to Wu Yan. Sensei, did you find out something? Actually, I'm in the dark as well. Wu Yan rubbed his forehead. Last night, Natsuki specifically told me not to leave the school if there's nothing important. Since she said so, she must have discovered something. Just in case, I'll tell you about this matter first so that you can be mentally prepared. Yukaina told Wu Yan about her true identity when he met Koju for the first time. Koju's familiar went berserk. That's why Wu Yan is here to remind her of her identity. Yukaina knew that Wu Yan was an attack mage. Even if he was just an apprentice, his words wouldn't be baseless. She nodded solemnly. I'll keep an eye out for you, sensei. That won't be necessary. I'll engrave a sensing spell in the school. If anything happens, I'll know. Wu Yan looked at Koju. His mouth twitched. Jizhua, you'd better pay attention to the fourth ancestor. I have a feeling that if anything bad happens in the school, even if he isn't the source, he'll be the first idiot to jump into the trouble, said Jizhua. Yukaina laughed dryly but nodded in agreement. With Koju's personality, or rather his physique, it was absolutely possible that something like this would happen. I say. At this moment, Nagisa's voice sounded in front of them. Her tone was a bit strange. You seem pretty close. Wu Yan and Yukaina froze up. They turned to look at Nagisa and Koju. Nagisa's and Koju's strange expressions fell into their line of sight. They realized that they were too close to each other because they wanted to talk about something they didn't know. No, to be more precise, Yukaina almost fell into Wu Yan's arms. But Yukaina jumped away in shock. She saw Nagisa's and Koju's strange expressions, so she tried to explain. No. It's not like that. Yukina-chan. Nagisa interrupted Yukaina with a serious look. She also gave Wu Yan a look of disdain. That won't do. Don't forget, Kotori-chan will be sad. It's a misunderstanding. It's a misunderstanding. Yukaina blushed as she tried to explain herself. However, that only made Nagisa more suspicious. She also looked at Wu Yan like he's an animal. You're so bad. Not only did you hit your sister, you even hit your student. Wu Yan avoided Nagisa's aggressive glare. He sighed in a tired manner. So what if I hit my sister and my student? I even hit my loli. Whoosh. Suddenly, a subtle sound of something breaking through the air suddenly came from the side of the four of them. Against the whistling atmosphere, one or two soft roars, it shot out explosively. Its target is none other than the quarreling Wu Yan and company. Careful. Yukaina cried out when she heard the sound. Wu Yan was the first to notice it and he hugged Nagisa. He took a step and leaped forward. A second later, a few thin arrows flew past the four and headed straight for Koju. Why me? Koju only had time to say that before the arrows arrived in front of him and headed for his chest. Senpai. Yukina's expression changed and she grabbed the zipper of her guitar bag. Ping. Before Yukaina could do anything, Wu Yan appeared in front of Koju with Nagisa in his arms. With a wave of his hand, he deflected the arrows and they exploded into specks of starlight. The specks of light condensed into two black envelopes and landed in Wu Yan and Koju's hands. Then the light disappeared. What was that? Nagisa's face paled. She was shocked by the sudden turn of events. She didn't resist, she grabbed onto the corner of Wu Yan's shirt. Her eyes were filled with panic, she didn't know how to react. Senpai. Yukaina ran to their side. Are you guys okay? I'm fine. Koju wiped the sweat off his forehead and raised the envelope. But what is this? Yukaina finally noticed the envelope in Koju's hand, but her expression changed when she saw the seal on it. That seal. Wu Yan frowned. He looked at the envelope in his hand and he opened it up. Koju and Yukaina moved closer to Wu Yan and looked at the envelope. Yukaina was shocked. Duke of Erudiaro Dimitri? Invitation to Vatler's party. Vatler. Wu Yan's eyes flashed with helplessness as he tore the envelope apart. That snake charmer, he really didn't learn his lesson. Chapter 9:15. At night in the apartment. Kotori looked at the four luxurious suits on the table. She sorted out the information she just received and turned to Wu Yan. In other words, the noble called Vatler invited you to a banquet? Yes. Yeah. Wu Yan smirked as he patted the two men and two women's outfits on the table. I don't know what that snake charmer is thinking. Is he trying to get revenge? Yes. If he wanted revenge, he wouldn't have resorted to this method. After all, he's a vampire noble who has lived for a long time. Kotori said nonchalantly. She glanced at Wu Yan with an amused look. Speaking of which, you benefited a lot when you were invited to the banquet last time. Maybe this time some vampire noble's daughter will come out and make a shocking declaration. Ah. Wu Yan giggled and he changed the subject by pointing at the dress on the table. Speaking of which, this is really unfair. Why is it that Gu Qing and Jishua's dresses are delivered to our doorstep, while ours have to be specially prepared? Yes. Of the 4 suits on the table, 2 of them were mailed to Koju's house for him to attend the banquet. It was said that the Lion King organization had prepared them. On the other hand, Wu Yan has nothing to do with the Lion King organization. They probably don't even know if he exists, let alone help him prepare the formal attire. Wu Yan asked Natsuki to prepare the suits for him. If you don't want to go. In that case, just don't go. Kotori spun the jewel in her mouth and said, nothing good will come out of this party. Just don't go. You're right. Wu Yan tapped the table and sighed. But it's still better to go. More or less, we should figure out the other party's purpose. Is that so? Well, I don't care anyway. Don't talk like you don't have anything to do with it. Wu Yan picked up a suit and stuffed it into Kotori's arms. You're coming too. Huh. Kotori hugged the suit. Why do I have to go too? Is there a way? She pointed at the letter that was crushed to pieces. Wu Yan said. They want me to bring a dance partner. I see. Kotori was enlightened. She looked at Yukaina and Koju, who were both embarrassed and angry. Then I can roughly guess why the 2 of them are like this. Koju lowered his shoulders and pulled a long face. Why am I so unlucky? Wasn't it just because he accidentally saw Ji Mo's measurements on her dress? I can't help it. Senpai. Yukaina clenched her fist and smacked him on the head. Forget what you saw. Yes. Is it really okay? Nagisa, who had been silent all this time, finally spoke. The other party is a noble vampire from the warlord realm, right? Why did Kojo-kun, Yukina-chan and Kotori-chan have to go? Won't it be dangerous? Well. Wu Yan smiled bitterly and said to Nagisa. Kotori is going as my dance partner and the other party is a noble. It's going to be a big event, so it's necessary to bring a subordinate. I don't know many people in Itagami Island, so I can only ask Koju for help. Jishua is Koju's dance partner. Yes. Nagisa, you see, if Wu Yan sensei goes alone, won't he be at a disadvantage? Koju wasn't happy about being treated as a subordinate, but he didn't want to expose his identity. He had no choice but to swallow his pride. If I don't help sensei, he'll be too pitiful. But Nagisa didn't feel at ease. Her face was full of worry. If there's any danger. Nagisa. Koju didn't know what to say. He knew that Nagisa had developed a phobia towards demons after almost dying from their ambush. Demons were a synonym for danger and disaster in her heart. It was normal for her to be worried about them. From this perspective, Nagisa's acceptance of Wu Yan's existence is inconceivable. The atmosphere became heavy. Wu Yan looked at everyone and shook his head with a bitter smile. He reached out and patted Nagisa's head. Don't worry. Wu Yan smiled warmly at Nagisa, who was stunned by his action. Sensei promises you that nothing will happen to anyone. Trust me. Nagisa blinked and looked at Wu Yan's gentle smile. She blushed and lowered her head. However, the worry on her face dissipated. You can't lie to me. Wu Yan chuckled when he heard Nagisa's soft mumbling. Koju and the others relaxed as well. It seems like they didn't want to worry Nagisa too much. Speaking of which, Nagisa, did you notice? Wu Yan smiled happily as he patted Nagisa's head. You don't resist my touch anymore. Hearing this, everyone at the scene came to their senses. Really? Nagisa stared blankly at Wu Yan's hand on her head. Her face lit up and she placed a hand on her chest. Her face was filled with joy. My heart is beating fast, but I'm not afraid at all. Does this mean that Nagisa's fear of demons has been cured? Koju's eyes lit up when he heard Yukina's words. I don't know. Nagisa was confused. Kotori suggested. Why don't we let Nagisa try to interact with other demons? As soon as Kotori said this, Nagisa's face paled as if she had seen something terrifying. She shook her head furiously. No, absolutely not. Why? Koju clutched his chest as if he was hurt. Nagisa didn't know why and said something that hurt him even more. I don't know why, but I don't want to. Such a strong reaction. Kotori frowned and sighed. It seems Nagisa can only accept one demon. Kotori narrowed her eyes and glanced at Wu Yan. You're still the same. Only in front of girls can you show off your incredible power. Ahaha. Wu Yan chuckled dryly. He didn't know what to say. He messed up Nagisa's hair to vent his frustrations. Nagisa started grumbling in response. It's about time to go, right? Koju forced a smile when he saw how intimate the two were. Apart from Nagisa, 3 pairs of eyes turned to Koju at the same time. Pervert. Listen. Pervert. Shut the hell up. Koju exploded. Itagami Island Harbor. With spotlights on, a large yacht as gorgeous as a palace floated on the shallow water near the ground. Waves would hit it from time to time, but it did not affect the yacht at all. Although it was floating on the sea, the yacht was very stable, making people feel inexplicably uneasy. This is the banquet venue? Koju's expression became uneasy as he sighed in disgust. I feel so uneasy. Normally it would. Wu Yan shook his head. No matter how luxurious it is, the name Poseidon's tomb gives people the impression that it will sink sooner or later. Kotori, Yukaina, and Koju nodded. They were speechless. Wu Yan and Koju are wearing black suits. Under the influence of the night, they looked like aristocrats. Kotori is wearing a pink gown that exposed her smooth shoulders. Yukaina is wearing an eye-catching outfit that exposed her chest and above. Yukaina is wearing an eye-catching outfit with her chest exposed. The 2 beautiful girls were completely exposed from their shoulders to their backs. Their skirts only covered the base of their thighs. Their snow-white and slender thighs were not covered in the slightest. The thin fabric completely revealed the 2 girls' slender bodies. It was both sexy and beautiful. Anyone who saw the scene wouldn't think that they were only 14 or 15 years old. Even Koju was dumbfounded. Senpai. Yukaina narrowed her eyes and looked at Koju cautiously. Please don't look at me with that perverted gaze. I'm not. Koju retorted. The other 3 were speechless. He's used to it. Chapter 9:16. The deck was bathed in the darkness of the night. The dazzling lights dispelled the darkness. This place was very spacious. Not only was there enough space for about 100 guests to move freely without hindrance, there was even a swimming pool in the middle. Tables were scattered around, and delicious dishes and colorful wines were placed on the tables. Amidst the laughter and chatter, the food entered the mouths of everyone present. Wu Yan, Kotori, Yukaina, and Koju were standing at the entrance. Wu Yan looked at the deck and scanned the deck. Then where are the vampire nobles in the Battle Monarch's domain? Koju said impatiently. As an ordinary high school student, he had never experienced such a situation. You would rather go home and watch TV than attend a social meeting. Yukaina is in a similar situation. Even though she pretends to be calm, she's only 14 or 15 years old. Before coming to Itagami Island, she lived in the Lion King organization and was still a little girl. Because of this, Yukaina looks much younger than Kotori. After all, Kotori is the commander of Ratatosker and has seen her fair share of big events. You're invited, but you still have to look for the master? It was rare for Kotori to not have a single pearl in her mouth. It was unknown whether she was annoyed or impatient. Damn it. There's nothing worse than this. Wu Yan mocked Kotori. That snake charmer. These guests are probably invited by him to fill up the atmosphere. Kotori turned around and said to Wu Yan. Didn't you just meet him yesterday? Why do you look like you know him well? If a fight counts as knowing him, then yes. Wu Yan crossed his arms in front of his chest. It's just a feeling. I don't know him well. Don't mind it. Anyway, let's get this over with. Koju's annoyance turned into annoyance. I can't stand staying here any longer. That Vatler something. Where is this place? Let's go up. Looking up, Wu Yan looked at the top of the yacht. That's the only place I can think of. Observing the ordinary people here from a high vantage point as expected of a noble. With that, Wu Yan didn't stay any longer. He headed to the top deck with Kotori, Yukaina, and Koju following behind him. It was different from the lively banquet below. There were no lights on the top deck, nor were there any luxurious food or wine. It was just a cold deck. This was where Wu Yan and Vatler had clashed last night. Although the battle had only happened last night, it was still too late. However, the broken deck had been completely repaired, and it was impossible to tell that this place was still in a dilapidated state yesterday. Looking around, there was no one around, and the sounds of the banquet below could not reach here. Only the sound of waves could be heard. Where is he? She looked around at the empty space around her. Koju and Yukaina were at a loss. Wu Yen and Kodori looked in the same direction. An imperceptible light flashed in their eyes. Let's end our game of hide-and-seek here, Vatler. Wu Yen closed his eyes, his voice echoed clearly. Unlike you who is bored to death, I have a lot of things that I need to do. As cold as ever, Wu Yen. Just as Wu Yen finished his sentence, a series of light footsteps could be heard coming from the dark corners of the deck, drawing everyone's attention as they got closer and closer. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, a beautiful young man in a pure white Western-style suit appeared in front of the crowd. His blonde hair fluttered in the wind and his blue eyes were wide open. Vatler looked at Wu Yen with a mischievous grin. Then he turned to Koju with a bright glint in his eyes. He placed his hand in front of his chest and he bowed like a noble. Nice to meet you, Koju no Yebwa of Yenguang, my favorite fourth primogeniture. Koju's expression froze. He looked at Vatler, who was smiling at him. He shuddered and took a step back out of reflex. Favorite. Kodori and Yukaina raised an eyebrow. They looked at Koju with a meaningful gaze. Yukina's expression changed completely. She looked at Koju as a pervert before, but now she looked at him as a pervert. Senpai, I didn't know your perversion wasn't limited to gender. Stop imagining things. Koju's hair stood on end as he yelled at the top of his lungs. It's just that guy talking to himself. No, Koju, you're wrong. Vatler closed one eye and gave Koju a flying kiss. I came here to find you. Kodori and Yukaina moved away from Koju. Even Wu Yen couldn't stand it and turned around. Koju's veins popped out. He said something that shocked everyone. My sexual orientation is normal. I don't like men. I like men. I'm a big sister. Akatsuki. Koju's roar reverberated in the air. Wu Yen, Kotori and Yukaina were all stunned. They couldn't react in time. Vatler was the only one who guffawed. So you like that type of woman, Koju? No problem, I don't mind. Mind my ass. Who needs your attention? Koju seemed to be completely broken. He pointed at Vatler and continued to shout. Don't cause me unnecessary trouble, bastard. Unfortunately, Koju's argument only made Vatler laugh. It seems like he's right. Wu Yen, Kotori and Yukaina moved further away from him. You. As expected. Koju. Yukaina is the most dangerous thing to do. Suddenly, a sharp, steady and sweet voice rang out beside Vatler. The voice contained traces of hatred. Then a figure flashed out and stood in front of Vatler. It was a young girl. She had long, dark chestnut hair tied into a ponytail. She had a beautiful face, snow-white skin, and a slender figure that matched the cheongsam she was wearing. However, her height was not ordinary. She was at least 1.7 meters and she looked to be only 16 or 17 years old. At this age, having such a height was considered quite tall. It's you. Yukaina was shocked when she saw the girl. Sayaka. The moment Yukina's voice fell, the girl called Sayaka's beautiful face lit up as if she had seen something beautiful. Her face bloomed with a bright smile, and the hatred in her eyes when she looked at Koju turned into love. Yukaina. She cheered like a child, jumped up and hugged Yukaina. Her long ponytail swayed like a tail. Anyone could see that she was in a good mood. Long time no see. Yukaina. Ah, yes. Yukaina seemed to have only just reacted. She responded to Sha Yahua's call. Sha Yahua hugged her neck tightly, causing her to feel a little pain. However, compared to this, there was more joy on her face. Is she Jishua's friend? Koju blinked and asked in confusion. Yes, senpai, Sayaka is my childhood friend. Yukaina struggled to break free from Sayaka's embrace and said to Koju. I didn't know you were that close. Vatler raised an eyebrow and looked at Koju. Then Guqing, let's have a good time together. Love each other, my ass. Get away from me. Wu Yen and Kodori were speechless when they saw Yukaina and Sayaka hugging each other and Vatler approaching Koju. Both sides are the same. Kodori stated the truth. No matter which side it is, they both have sexual orientation issues. Of course not. Akatsuki, Koju and Yukina's roars echoed from the shore. Chapter 9:17. Vatler. Wu Yen sighed when he saw the situation getting worse. He finally opened his mouth to speak. Let's make it clear here. Why did you invite us here? Wu Yan's words made Guqing and the others stop what they were doing. The rowdy atmosphere started to turn serious. Vatler chuckled and closed his eyes. He stuffed his hands into his pockets, and the flirtatious aura around him changed, becoming sharp and incisive. This was how the real Vatler should be. Koju and Xianxia sensed the change in Vatler's aura. They came to Wu Yan's side and the four of them stood in a line facing Vatler. They looked like they were ready to attack at any moment. Don't make such a scary face. Vatler shrugged when he saw Koju and Yukina's tense faces. He tried to lighten the atmosphere. As the ambassador of the warlord's domain, I should pay a visit to the fourth primogenitor's territory, no? I told you don't act on your own. Koju clenched his fists. I've never said that I'm going to occupy this island. But according to legend, the world's strongest vampire is on this island. Vatler's tone changed when he mentioned the strongest vampire in the world. It's like he's excited. At least the fourth primogenitor is here. In other people's eyes, this island is the fourth primogenitor's territory, including the people on this island. Koju paused. Wu Yan guessed correctly. Unlike the other three primogenitors who ruled over an entire empire and a large number of vampires, the fourth primogenitor had never led a vampire compatriot or ruled over a territory. Instead, he had 12 disaster-like familiars. He brings fear and darkness to people. However, a true ancestor was a true ancestor after all. They were at the peak of the vampires and had the highest level of fighting power in the world. They were regarded by the world as having the same fighting power as a country, and they had such strength in this world. Ruling over a territory is a piece of cake for them. They have the right to create an empire. The other three primogenitors created their own empires. Koju, as the fourth primogenitor, is considered to be a primogenitor who wants to rule over a territory. Koju lives in Itagami City. It's understandable that people would think of Itagami City as Koju's territory. Vatler looked at Koju's frozen expression and raised his head in delight. Then he looked at Wu Yan with an even more joyful expression. An uncontrollable smile appeared on his face. To the world, this is the territory of the fourth primogenitor because the fourth primogenitor lives here. But Vatler clutched his head as he stared at the expressionless Wu Yan. He started laughing. If people know of your existence, won't this knowledge be preserved? Other than Wu Yan and Kotori, Koju, Xianxia and Sayaka frowned. What does that mean? Guqing couldn't help but ask. Vatler looked at Guqing in surprise. Guqing, don't tell me you don't know what kind of existence this person beside you is? Sensei. Koju subconsciously looked at Wu Yan. Xianxia and Sayaka did the same. Koju and Xianxia have been wondering about Wu Yan's identity for a long time now. Despite being only 26 years old, he possessed unimaginable power. Not only could he casually challenge the vampire nobleman to a fight, but he could also defeat the Lion's Gold, the fourth primogenitor's familiar, without even summoning his familiar. Even if the Lion's Gold's power isn't complete, how can a 26-year-old vampire defeat it in one hit without summoning his familiar? The answer was obvious even if one used their knees to think. However, Wu Yan didn't explain and Koju and Xianxia didn't ask. Plus, Wu Yan gave them a good impression. He doesn't look like a bad guy or an enemy, so they didn't probe further. Koju and Xianxia didn't have the opportunity to know Wu Yan's identity, so they reacted when Vatler brought it up. Vatler saw their reactions and knew the answer he wanted to know. Unfortunately, he didn't give them an answer. If that's the case, Koju, you'd better be careful, Vatler said with a wicked smile. He didn't want to give up until he was shocked to death. The person beside you might be even more terrifying than the strongest vampire in this world. Koju and Yukina's expressions froze. Their eyes widened as they looked at Wu Yan with disbelief. Glancing at the two of them, Wu Yan shook his head and sighed. Is that all you want to say, Vatler? Oh? Are you angry? Vatler pretended to take a step back, but his face was full of smiles. No matter what, I'm just a diplomat. A noble coming to a man-made island to be a diplomat? Kotori suddenly interrupted Vatler. Compared to Itagami City, the first primogenitor's Empire of Darkness should have some territories that are more valuable than Itagami City, right? Even if it's a diplomatic mission, there's no need to send a direct descendant unless there's no one left in Warlord's territory. Vatler opened his eyes and looked at Kotori in surprise. It was as if he hadn't noticed her existence until now. You are? Me. Kotori raised her head with a wicked smile on her face. I might be even more terrifying than the two vampires you're worried about. That's interesting. Vatler froze for a moment before laughing. Since this terrifying existence has already said so much, it would be a form of sophistry if I continue to hide it. Vatler walked to the railing and looked out at the ocean. Christoph Kardashian? Christoph Kardashian. Kodari, Koju and Yukaina were stunned when Vatler mentioned the name. Wu Yen, on the other hand, understood what happened after Vatler spoke. Vatler. Wu Yen took a deep look at Vatler. Your goal is the ancient weapon in the Black Death Emperor faction's possession, the Nalakuvula, right? Black Death Emperor faction. Koju exclaimed. Nalakuvula. Yukaina furrowed her brows. You already know that much? Vatler smiled, his eyes suddenly burning with passion. That's right. It's a weapon from the Age of Gods that destroyed countless civilizations. I heard it has the power to kill a primogenitor. I'm very interested in that power. Could it be? Yukaina gasped as she thought of something. You're doing this for, that's how it is. Vatler finally laughed out loud without holding back. Isn't it interesting to fight with a primogenitor-killing weapon? Stop joking. Koju roared. That Nalakuvula has the power to kill primogenitors. It must be very dangerous. What will happen to the island if you fight? The familiars of the old generation vampires were not to be trifled with. Any one of them could easily raise a small village to the ground. Koju didn't know what level of vampire Vatler is, but if he's a noble in the warlord's territory, he's no weaker than an old generation vampire. If he unleashes his vassal beasts to fight that terrifying weapon in Itagami City, it wouldn't be strange if the entire island was destroyed. That's why I'm here, Koju. Vatler used a tone that could pierce through Koju's heart. I'm here to greet you in case you don't forgive my rudeness. You bastard. Koju was furious. He wanted to do something, but Wu Yen grabbed his shoulder and smiled. If you can do it, then give it a try. Wu Yen said with an indifferent smile. The smile on Vatler's face froze for a moment, but it quickly reappeared. Kodari and Koju stared at each other in silence. Koju and Yukaina opened their mouths as if they wanted to say something. But in the end they didn't say anything and remained silent. Chapter 9:18. Itagami Island, Southern Residential Area. On the way home, the full view of the apartment appeared in front of everyone's eyes. However, no one present reacted to it. As they walked into the apartment, they remained silent as if they were thinking about something. This scene had been going on ever since Vatler got off the yacht. Aside from Kodari, Wu Yen, Yukaina, and Koju had heavy expressions on their faces. To be more precise, Yukaina and Koju had heavy expressions on their faces. Wu Yen muttered to himself. His wine-red eyes flashed with a hint of contemplation. It's clear that he's lost in his thoughts. The four of them entered the elevator in silence. Their bodies rose along with the elevator. When they were about to reach their destination, Yukaina couldn't help but ask Wu Yen in a worried tone. Sensei, is it really okay? The silence was broken. Kodari and Koju looked at Wu Yen. Wu Yen snapped out of his daze, but he didn't hear what Yukaina said. What did you say? Sensei. Yukaina looked at Wu Yen with an accusatory gaze and sighed. I say, is it really okay to just leave it be like this? Duke Arudiaro's goal is to protect Itagami Island. It's dangerous. Yeah. Koju, who had been holding back, finally lost his temper. If that Vatler guy really does fight with that Nalakuvula thing, he'll be the first to die. Then what should this island and the people on this island do? You guys. Wu Yen shook his head and patted Yukaina's head. Aren't you guys being a little too worried? Too worried? Yukaina and Koju froze. Isn't that right? Wu Yen smiled. Then let's take a step back. Even if we don't leave Vatler alone, what can you guys do? We can arrest Christopher Garza first. Capture Gardos. Yukaina said without hesitation. If that's the case, Duke Arudiaro won't have a reason to start a war, right? You can think of it. Can't the others think of it as well? Wu Yen pursed his lips and he told Yukaina. He's still the leader of a terrorist organization. If he's that easy to capture, we wouldn't be having such a headache. But that's enough. Wu Yen interrupted her and he rubbed her head. Don't underestimate Itagami Island. One of you is the fourth primogenitor and the other is a sword shaman from Lion Organization. But there are plenty of capable people in Itagami Island. You're just students. Even if the sky falls, there will be someone stronger to hold it up. At least I'll be here. Vatler won't go too far. Smiling warmly, Wu Yan lowered his voice. His tone gave Xianxia and Koju an indescribable sense of security. You guys just have to live your own lives. If there's really something I need your help with, I'll give it to you. If you really need help, I won't hold back. So don't overthink it. Hearing this, Xianxia and Koju looked at each other. Their emotions calmed down a little and a smile appeared on their faces. Both of them are people with a strong sense of justice, but like Wu Yan said, they're still students. They haven't even reached adulthood yet. It's not right for them to shoulder the responsibility of saving the demon race. Even if their identities were extraordinary, abilities were just abilities, right? Wu Yan's words gave them a sense of security. I understand, Sensei. Xianxia nodded solemnly. If you need our help, please don't hesitate. But Wu Yan smiled. Even if it's free labor, I won't let it go. How direct. Koji didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He looked at Wu Yan and he hesitated for a bit before asking. By the way, Wu Yan sensei, Vatler said you're more terrifying than the fourth primogenitor. What did he mean by that? Yes, sensei. Xianxia hesitated, but she still asked anyway. Who are you? You believe Vatler's words. Wu Yan scratched his face and glanced at Koju. If he's talking about the fully awakened fourth primogenitor, you wouldn't believe me if I said I'm on par with him. Is it strange if I say the fourth primogenitor is more terrifying than him? Koju was speechless. Xianxia sensed that something is wrong, but she didn't know how to ask. She looked like she's in a dilemma. Wu Yan found it funny when he saw her like this. He rubbed Yukina's head and started rubbing her head. Don't think too much about it. Go home and rest. I know. Don't mess up my hair. Xianxia covered her head in embarrassment. Wu Yan rubbed her head even harder. Kotori looked helpless. Wu Yan and Xianxia didn't notice that while they were having fun, the camera in the elevator was recording their every move. It wasn't just recorded in the control room, it was also recorded in the mind of a girl with a ponytail sitting on the top floor of a building not far away from them. Gritting her teeth, the girl looked at the image in her mind, and a trace of hatred came out of her mouth. How dare he rub my Yukina's head like that? None of the vampires around Xianxia are good people. The next day the sun shone brightly. That vampire noble really didn't do anything to you? Didn't he suck your blood? I heard vampires have an urge to suck blood because of that. That Vatler guy, did he do anything strange to you? Wu Yan and Xianxia were sweating profusely as Nagisa interrogated them. They looked at her serious and curious eyes. They couldn't bear to push her away. They shook their heads helplessly and smiled bitterly. He really didn't do anything. Wu Yan pushed Nagisa's body away. He looked like he was catching his breath. Plus, that urge is only for the opposite sex, right? You should ask Xianxia about that. Sensei. Xianxia panicked when she saw that Wu Yan was trying to get her into trouble. Duke Arudiara wouldn't be interested in me. Even if he was, it would be for senpai. Koju-kun. Nagisa panicked. Koju-kun is interested in men. To that. Xianxia awkwardly giggled and she looked at Wu Yan with a pleading look. Wu Yan rolled his eyes and he snickered. We don't know, but Vatler is very interested in the ancient city. As for the ancient city. Wu Yan purposely dragged out his words as if there's something he can't say. Nagisa's mind was in a mess when she heard this. I didn't expect Koju-kun to have that kind of interest. Nagisa clenched her fists and shouted. No. Nagisa has to ask him when we get back home. Wu Yan and Xianxia reflexively took a step back. They gulped and crossed themselves as they prayed for Koju's safety. Hopefully he would be able to hold on under Nagisa's relentless interrogation. At the same time, a large vehicle that could fit many people was parked at the gate of Kaihai Academy. In the car, a man in military uniform with a dignified appearance who looked a little old, but his thin eyes were full of light, rolled down the window and looked at the buildings in Kaihai Academy. He turned around and looked at the two hairy orcs behind him. The Witch of the Void, Natsuki Minamiya, should be at our base by now. The only one who can threaten us in this academy is that vampire called Wu Yan. You two hold him back while I bring the one who can decipher the tablet. This. The two beastmen looked at each other. Is this okay? Won't we be discovered? If I don't transform, I'll look like an old visitor. I won't be discovered. Go ahead and buy me as much time as you can. Yes, sir. Chapter 919. Two beastmen broke into Saikai Academy and charged towards the middle school building. Wu Yan, who was playing with Yukaina and Nagisa, froze. His face darkened. Sensei. Nagisa called out to Wu Yan, but Yukaina grabbed her wrist. She looked at Wu Yan with a serious expression. Sensei, what happened? Yes. Wu Yan narrowed his eyes and nodded. The sensing tactic I've engraved in the school has reacted. Two beastmen have arrived at the school. Beastmen. Yukaina lowered her body. She was on high alert. Black Death Emperor faction? If I'm not mistaken, that should be it. Wu Yan stood up. Yukaina also stood up. She tilted her head in confusion. But why would Black Death Emperor faction send people to school? Wu Yan lowered his head. He mused for a bit before abruptly raising his head again. I once asked Natsuki if no one could decipher Nalacuvula. At that time Natsuki was very certain, but I don't know what she thought of, but she hesitated. She even told me to stay in school if I had nothing to do. Yukaina froze for a moment before her expression changed. You mean? That's right. Wu Yan nodded and sneered. The Black Death Emperor faction came to Itagami Island for a reason. Other than to cause panic and prove to the world that they are still alive, their main goal is the ancient weapon Nalacuvra. Considering their goal and Natsuki's words, I'm guessing there must be someone in Saikai Academy who can decipher the Nalacuvra's control method. Wah! Yukaina sucked in a cold breath. In other words, the Black Death Emperor faction might be using the Nalacuvra. That should be it. Wu Yan sighed. Are these two beastmen here to capture someone who can decipher the Nalacuvra? Yukaina grabbed her guitar bag. She walked towards Wu Yan. Sensei, let's stop them. Wait. Wu Yan stopped her with a frown. Those two beastmen are coming our way. Our way? Yukaina was shocked. Why yes. I don't know. Wu Yan gritted his teeth and looked at Yukaina. Anyway, Yukaina. First, take all the students here to take refuge. Sensei. Yukaina knew this was not the time to be confused. If the two beastmen's destination was here and they started fighting here, it would affect the students and it would be terrible. Yukaina. She ran over to the students and tried to persuade them to leave. The students were confused, but Yukaina was with Wu Yan, so they thought it was their teacher's idea. They didn't object and they followed Yukaina out of the scene with their heads full of questions. Wu Yan nodded. He closed his eyes and expanded his senses to observe the movements of the two beastmen. Wu Yan, who was paying attention to the beastmen, didn't notice the man in military uniform walking slowly into the school as if he was here for a tour. Not long after, the two beastmen arrived near the classroom. Wu Yan wanted to make a move, but a hand grabbed the corner of his shirt from behind. No. No way. A familiar voice filled with fear rang in Wu Yan's ears. Wu Yan was stunned. He turned around and looked behind him. Nagisa was trembling violently. Her face was as white as a sheet. It was as if all the warmth in her body had left her. She was the one who grabbed Wu Yan's shirt. Nagisa. Wu Yan was shocked. Why didn't you leave with Yukaina? Sensei. Sensei. Nagisa shook her head as if she didn't hear Wu Yan. Sensei. I'm scared. I'm scared. Looking at Nagisa's pale and fearful face, Wu Yan's heart throbbed with pain as he cursed inside. This situation was exactly the same as when he first arrived at Itagami Island and got into a fight with two vampires. Nagisa was afraid of demons, so she didn't react in time and tried to escape. Yukaina, who thought Nagisa was following her, left her behind. Wu Yan panicked when he sensed the two beastmen approaching the classroom. Bang! With a dull thud, two orcs covered in black fur and wearing beast heads violently kicked down the door of the classroom and barged into the scene with pistols in their hands. Ah! The appearance of the two beastmen finally ignited the fear in Nagisa's heart. Shut up! The two beastmen raised their pistols and aimed at Nagisa. They were worried that her screams would attract the attention of others, but Nagisa couldn't hear them. She clutched her head and screamed in terror. No. No. Shut up. The orc's finger was already on the trigger. Nagisa. Wu Yan hugged Nagisa tightly, exposing his back to the two beastmen. He ignored them and shook Nagisa's shoulders. Calm down. Calm down, Nagisa. Ah. Aw, just like the first time they met, Nagisa couldn't calm down. She kept shrieking in terror. Judging by her expression, Wu Yan's words didn't register in her mind. Nagisa, Nagisa. No matter how much Wu Yan shouted, Nagisa continued to scream. Wu Yan pursed his lips and pulled Nagisa closer to him. He lowered his head and kissed Nagisa's lips. The screams came to an abrupt halt. Nagisa's eyes widened to their widest extent. The fear that had been enough to shatter her nerves had turned into shock and disbelief. She slowly regained consciousness. The two orcs seemed to be shocked by the scene in front of them. Their mouths were wide open and their fingers that were about to pull the trigger froze. For a moment they were stunned on the spot. Her bright eyes reflected Wu Yan's face. Nagisa stared at him blankly, her mind went blank. She couldn't believe her eyes when she felt the warmth on her lips. Her first kiss was actually taken away by her own teacher. Not long after, Wu Yan let go of Nagisa's lips. He bitterly smiled when he saw her dazed expression. He tightened his grip on her petite frame. "Don't be afraid, I'm here." Nagisa regained her senses when she heard Wu Yan's words. Her pale face flushed red as she turned her head around in a daze. She had completely lost her ability to think, she could only nod her head out of reflex. The two beastmen also regained their senses. They raised their guns and pulled the trigger without hesitation. Bang 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 bang. A series of gunshots rang out, accompanied by sparks and smoke. Metal bullets shot out and tore through the air towards Wu Yan's back. Upon closer inspection, the bullets were wrapped in strands of mana. Even an orc would fall after being shot by such a bullet. It was the same for vampires before they recovered. The sound of air being torn through came from behind. Wu Yan's eyes turned cold. He didn't even turn his head. Behind him, crimson spatial ripples rippled and protected Wu Yan and Nagisa. Whoosh 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 whoosh. The mana-infused bullets shot into the crimson space ripples, creating even more intense ripples. However, the bullets disappeared into thin air, they didn't hit Wu Yan. What? The two beastmen were shocked. What kind of magic is that? A magic trick that will take your life. The cold voice reverberated in the ears of the two beastmen. Their expressions changed drastically. Then their vision was filled with flashing iron sand swords. Bang bang bang. The walls of the classroom shattered. The iron sand swords continued to fly forward and disappeared into thin air. The two beastmen lay on the ground covered in wounds. Their bodies were bleeding and their auras were barely discernible. Chapter 9:20. Bam! Under the attack of the iron sand swords, the two orcs crashed through the walls of the classroom and were buried in a pile of rocks. They groaned for a while and couldn't get up again. Humph! Wu Yan waved his hand and he put away the gate of Babylon in front of him. At this moment, a figure ran out from the shattered wall of the classroom. Aya, it's over. Looking at the rubble and the two beastmen on the ground, this person's first reaction was to laugh out loud. Wu Yan was stunned when he saw this person. Sasasaki-senpai. This is a little too much. Sasasaki-senpai shook her head and sighed at Wu Yan. How am I going to explain this to the principal? Well, I'll explain it to the principal myself if it's bothering me. There's no need. Sasasaki-senpai scratched her head and stuck out her tongue. These two orcs are from the Black Death Emperor's faction, right? You're just carrying out your duties. There shouldn't be any problems. Plus, you're a junior, how can I let you take responsibility? Wu Yan smiled bitterly, but his smile froze on his face not long after. In his senses, a man in military uniform suddenly knocked out a student and quickly transformed into a fur-covered beast man. He then carried the student on his shoulder. And this will. The beast man used his superior physique to break open the nearest window. He jumped in front of a car and before Wu Yan could react, the car sped away from Saikai Academy. At this point Wu Yan understood. These two orcs were just bait to distract him. The other orc was the real person who came to Kaihai Academy to kidnap the one who could decipher Nalacuvula's control method. But how did they know he was the one who would hinder them? Moreover, judging from their carefully designed kidnapping plan, they also knew that he had a tactic that could sense the situation of the entire Rainbow Sea Academy. Otherwise they wouldn't have acted so purposefully. Could it be the Black Death Emperor's faction? They had information on him all along? Thinking of this, Wu Yan cursed in his mind. He didn't bother explaining himself and handed the stunned Nagisa to Sasasaki-senpai. Sasasaki-senpai. Sorry for troubling you, Nagisa. He left this sentence behind. Wu Yen teleported and disappeared. Sasasaki-senpai, who didn't know what Wu Yen was capable of, was shocked. Is that the same type of magic as Natsuki-senpai? Sasasaki-senpai chuckled. Could it be that he hit it off with Natsuki-senpai? Senpai. Nagisa stared at the direction Wu Yen disappeared and clasped her hands together. It's fine, it's fine. Sasasaki-senpai patted Nagisa's shoulder and comforted her with a smile. He's an attack mage. Even if he's just an apprentice, he shouldn't have a problem dealing with a few orcs. After all, he's a newbie recommended by Natsuki-senpai. Nagisa nodded with a heavy heart. It's unknown if she took Sasasaki-senpai's words to heart. She's the only one who knows. Her heart is in a mess. Her face is hot. The artificial island, Itagami Island, is actually made up of 4 large floating structures. They are located in the east, south, west, and north of the city. It's a place for humans and demons to live. Other than the 4 large floating structures, there are many other smaller artificial areas around the island. They are used for other purposes. For example, there's a waste disposal chamber for non-flammable trash. These small attached islands were called artificial islands. Back when Wu Yen summoned his familiars for the first time and led the Berserk Koju to an uninhabited area, it was one of these artificial islands. Today, on one of the artificial islands on Itagami Island that is under construction. It has a radius of about 5 kilometers. It's a square-shaped island that juts out from the sea to dispose of trash. A fierce battle is going on. On the flat and spacious island, the ground was covered with thick steel plates. The helicopters crashed onto the steel-like ground one by one and burst into flames with loud explosions. Some vehicles were unfortunately caught in the smoke and turned into a pile of wreckage, emitting fire and smoke, indicating the fierce state of the battle. It's a battle between the Black Death Emperor faction and the Special Forces. Smoke and gunshots reverberated in the surroundings. On the artificial island that was under construction, the cranes and surveillance towers collapsed like rotten wood. Some of the larger cranes and surveillance towers even turned into the most lethal weapons. They smashed towards the humans and orcs who were fighting amidst the frantic roars of the orcs. Around them, several armored vehicles with thick armor plates stood there. The special zone guards were hiding behind the armored vehicles. They were using special bullets to deal with orcs to shoot forward. Behind some obstacles in front of them, there were also guns fighting back against the special zone guards. The fierce gunfight evolved into a stalemate between the two sides. For a while no one could tell who was the winner. On the side of the wreckage of the destroyed helicopters and armored vehicles, some injured people were hiding here. While enduring the pain of their wounds, they were trying to find ways to move their bodies so that they could participate in the battle and give their team a boost of strength. However, in this battle of attrition, the number of injured soldiers will only increase until there are casualties. Even so, it would be difficult for this battle to come to an end unless one side was completely defeated. Holding a parasol in her hand, Natsuki's black gothic dress fluttered in the wind. She stood very close to the battlefield and witnessed everything with her own eyes. She didn't make a move to capture the beastmen. No one knows what she's thinking. She kept looking forward with her usual calm eyes. Even when bullets flew past her, she didn't react. If Natsuki was willing to make a move, this battle will end in a short time. But she didn't. She already knows there will be more troublesome things to come. That's what she needs to deal with. Humph. Nayu let out a soft snort when she saw a rather large black shadow appear amidst the black smoke of war in front of her. So it still ended up like this. At the same time, in a deserted alley not too far away from the artificial island, Wu Yen is looking at the area where black smoke is billowing out from. His face is devoid of any emotion. In fact, his pair of wine-red eyes, there is a trace of uncontrollable rage. When he was still in Kaihai Academy, the Black Death Emperor had kidnapped the student who could decipher Nalacuvula's control method before he could react. However, the other party's mode of transportation was merely a vehicle, while he had teleportation magic. Under the circumstances where he could teleport, he could catch up with the other party in a matter of seconds. If that was the case, the Black Death Emperor faction's wishful thinking would be completely destroyed. But now, the Black Death Emperor's people had probably brought him to their temporary headquarters to decipher the method of control. That's why Wu Yan is so angry. Turning around to look at the battlefield, Wu Yan coldly looked at a spot not far away from him. His voice dropped to a freezing point. Have you planned this from the start? Vatler. Heh. Vatler raised his sunglasses and smiled evilly in front of Wu Yan. Don't be so angry. Isn't it fun? Vatler spread his hands and smiled without remorse. After all, if you mess up the situation, it won't be fun anymore. You like to play? Don't you? Wu Yan took in a deep breath. Magic power surged out of his body, and along with his rage, the flames of rage started to burn within him. Then I'll play with you. Chapter 921. I've been wondering. Wu Yan's mana surged like a tidal wave. His body looked like it was coated with a layer of light. It shined brightly. Why was the Black Death Emperor faction able to infiltrate Itagami Island so stealthily? Why was it so hard to find a hiding place when they obtained the ancient weapon Nalakuvula? And why was the Black Death Emperor faction able to act so purposefully in Saikai Academy? They even knew that I was the real obstacle and sent people to restrain me. Zhang Che thought to himself. As if he wanted to vent something, Wu Yan spat it out word by word. Vatler, you're the one behind all of this, aren't you? Vatler is a noble from Warlord Domain. He came to Itagami Island as a diplomatic envoy. As a diplomatic envoy, the yacht Vatler was staying on was strictly protected. Even the special forces couldn't search the yacht without solid evidence. The Black Death Emperor faction was a terrorist from the warlord's territory. Their goal was to overthrow the first true ancestor, so Vatler and the Black Death Emperor faction were enemies. But because of this, if Vatler provided shelter for the Black Death Emperor faction and let them hide in his ship, then they would be the safest. As long as Vatler provided a hiding place for the Black Death Emperor faction, everything would make sense. I'm afraid so. You were the one who leaked my information to the Black Death Emperor faction, right? He stared at Vatler intently. Wu Yan said coldly. Vatler chuckled and put on an annoying smile. He then shook his head and said in a regretful tone, You misunderstood me. The Black Death Emperor sect is an enemy organization of the Battle King's land. I am a noble of the Battle King's land, and I am a noble of the Battle King's land. How could he possibly help his enemy? This explanation was indeed very convincing. Who would provide help to their enemies? However, Vatler's next sentence completely destroyed this excuse. I just didn't think that there would be a terrorist hiding on my ship. Vatler smiled, his words infuriating. When I noticed it, the Black Death Emperor faction had already attacked me. I couldn't beat them, so I had to abandon the yacht and escape. That's how lucky I am. He didn't expect there to be a terrorist on his yacht. Couldn't beat them? Abandoned the yacht and escaped? Escaped with his life. A 9th-grade noble vampire managed to survive in the hands of a group of terrorists who hadn't even reached 8th grade? Why did they come here to stop him? Very good. His heart calmed down. Wu Yan looked at the smiling Vatler. Suddenly, a crimson spatial ripple appeared under Wu Yan's right hand. I hope so. You can continue to be lucky. Haha. Haha. Ha! Vatler covered his face as his body trembled. A burst of uncontrollable laughter escaped from the gaps of his fingers. Along with the ferocious swirling of mana, the laughter reverberated around Vatler's body. 3 python-like fluorescent serpents formed from Vatler's magic power. They coiled their bodies and flew up. They collided in midair and merged like water. Then a light dragon with spikes on its back, missing its horns and limbs, and covered in black scales appeared and circled around Vatler. Finally, I can fight with you again. The mysterious 5th primogenitor. Like a fanatical believer, Vatler suppressed the wild excitement in his heart as his voice reverberated through the air. Compared to an ancient weapon that can kill a primogenitor, I would much rather fight a primogenitor. Don't you think so? Don't you think so? His blue eyes turned crimson red. Vatler ripped off his sunglasses and crushed them. He stared at Wu Yan with a look of ecstasy on his face. Come, let's continue where we left off last time. Not over. Wu Yan snickered. He held the Gate of Babylon in the palm of his hand. A red spear came out of the Gate of Babylon and landed in his hand. You're wrong, Vatler. The last battle ended with my victory. This time you'll lose even faster. Vatler paused. He looked at the red spear in Wu Yan's hand. What is that? You will find out soon enough. Wu Yan's magic power abruptly shrunk after he said that. Vatler's expression stiffened. He manipulated his familiar and threw a mana vortex behind him. Hiss. The glowing light dragon swung its body like a whip. Under the guidance of its host, the heavily armored body of the light dragon transformed into the most direct form of a savage beast. Withstanding the ferocious force that caused the space to tremble, the light dragon charged forward and crashed into Vatler's back. Wu Yan appeared out of thin air with a red spear in his hand. His expression didn't change at all when he saw the vassal beast charging at him. Ping! Stomping on the air, Wu Yan charged forward with his tiny body that is incomparable to Guanglong's. Leaping into the air, the spear in his hand thrusted forward with a ferocious momentum. It's as if he's aiming at an iron rod. He thrusted forward with all his might. Vatler almost smiled mockingly at the sight of this. Vassal beasts were a collection of mana. To deal with a vassal beast, one had to use mana that was even more powerful than the vassal beast's mana to neutralize the vassal beast's mana. It wasn't that there weren't any methods that were effective against mana in this world, but there weren't many of them. Vatler, who had lived as a vampire for a long time, knew almost all of them. However, he had never seen this red spear before. However, Vatler did not hold back. Let me have a taste. The blood of the fifth primogeniture. What does it taste like? As Vatler roared, the light dragon charged forward and collided with the red spear that was as thin as a needle. But in the next moment an unbelievable scene occurred. Ding! The red spear pierced through the massive body of the familiar, accurately landing on its forehead. At the point of impact, a ripple of energy rippled outwards, followed by a crisp sound that reverberated through the small alleyway. Then, bang! Guanglong's familiar was powerful enough to turn the entire Itagami Island into rubble. Guang! It disintegrated into nothingness. Wu Yan blocked the vassal beast of the vampire who is said to be the closest to a primogeniture with a single strike. What? Vatler's smile froze on his face. The impact created a tornado that blew away everything in its path. Wu Yan charged forward with the red spear in hand. His expression didn't change. He arrived in front of Vatler. Raising his head, Guanglong stared at the stunned Vatler. He gripped the spear with both hands and thrust it at Vatler. Bang! Vatler looked like he had been hit by an invisible meteorite. He howled in pain as he was sent flying backwards. Bam! His perfectly proportioned body was like an arrow that had left the bow. With a burst of air-piercing sounds, he flew out at an extremely fast speed and crashed into the wall at the end of the alley. He broke through layer after layer of hard rocks and smashed onto the ground, creating a 2-meter-deep pit and dense smoke and dust. The broken rocks did not even have the chance to land on Vatler as they were blown away by the violent impact. Not long after, only Vatler's grotesquely twisted body was left lying in the crater. His spine had been completely broken. Less than 10 seconds have passed since the start of the battle. In 10 seconds, Vatler, the closest vampires to a primogeniture, has been defeated. Vatler opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of scarlet blood. His pupils were dilated and his lips were slightly opened. In the air, 3 words filled with disbelief were spat out by him with difficulty. Impossible. Chapter 922. Impossible. The pain from his waist didn't cover up the shock in Vatler's heart. Lying in the hole full of cracks, he still hadn't realized that he had lost the battle. It's not like Vatler hasn't tried losing before. A few days ago he lost to Wu Yan as well. He lost just as badly as he did this time. Back then Wu Yan did summon vassal beasts that vampires rely on to survive. Vatler didn't feel dejected when he lost. In fact, he was very happy. He's confident in his own power, but compared to having someone to kill time with, he would much rather have someone to kill time with. But this time, Vatler could no longer maintain his composure. He had lost without even knowing why. Vatler allowed his broken ribs to slowly heal as he struggled to lift his head. He looked at Wu Yan, who was standing in front of him with a spear in hand. He asked in a hoarse voice, "That spear?" Wu Yan watched as Vatler's handsome face was ruined by the blood he spat out. Wu Yan looked down at him for a bit. He raised the red spear in his hand. It's called the Fantasy Killer. Fantasy Killer? That's right. That's right. Wu Yan caressed the spear and explained, as the name suggests, it's a killer that kills all illusions. It's a killer that can wipe out all illusions. It has the effect of erasing all abilities such as superpowers and magic. Wu Yan looked at the stunned Vatler and smirked. Of course, that includes familiars made of magic. A superpower that can obliterate everything. Vatler stared at the spear in Wu Yan's hand. He laughed out loud in a mocking manner. He was so happy that he looked like a madman. So that's how it is. And here I thought that the Lion King organization's 7 assault demon subduing machine gun, that is engraved with the divine spark vibration wave driving tactic, is already the nemesis of us vampires. I never thought that there would be such a weapon in this world. Erase all abilities, haha. The 5th true ancestor that appeared out of nowhere, and this divine weapon that appeared out of nowhere. Vatler coughed a few times and twisted his body. He did not care about his broken waist and forced himself to get up. He knelt on one knee and stared at Wu Yan with his crimson eyes. Who are you? Following Vatler's question, the crowd fell into a deathly silence. He glanced at Vatler, who was still recovering. Wu Yan snorted. Do you care? I thought you were happy as long as there was someone to play with? Haha. Haha. Vatler paused for a second, then forced an ugly smile. He laughed. You're right. My divine weapon, the Fantasy Killer, defeated me in one hit? Interesting, isn't it? You're the one who got careless. Wu Yan coldly said. If you didn't think too highly of yourself and underestimated the Fantasy Killer, you wouldn't have lost so quickly. Indeed, Vatler had lost so quickly because he didn't know what Fantasy Killer was capable of. His most powerful familiar had been destroyed in an instant, catching him off guard. If it happened again, even if Wu Yan used the Fantasy Killer, it wouldn't be easy to kill Vatler, who was 1 or 2 levels higher than him, in 10 seconds. Vatler snickered in response to Wu Yan's statement. He looked very ferocious. Who knows? But thanks to you, I've really enjoyed myself to the fullest this time. Vatler turned his head to look at the artificial island and smiled happily. Since I've had a lot of fun, you can have now a Cuvula, Wu Yan. As expected, compared to the incomplete 4th primogeniture, your blood is more worth devouring. With that, Vatler supported his body, which had yet to fully recover, and used the special ability of a vampire. He instantly turned into a golden mist and disappeared on the spot. Bam! A second after Vatler left, a muffled sound rang out and the area he was in collapsed. The ground was crushed into powder and the crater almost doubled in size. Tisk. Wu Yan put away Fantasy Killer and he confirmed that Vatler's aura is no longer here. He smacked his lips in annoyance and he tossed the spear away. Fantasy Killer returned to the gate of Babylon with a burst of crimson spatial ripples. Damn you, Vatler. You've wasted my time. I won't be so lucky next time. With that, Wu Yan looked at the man-made island that was still emitting black smoke. He turned around and disappeared from where he stood. Kaboom! Ah! A roar similar to an explosion reverberated throughout the artificial island, rolling up bursts of fire and exploding flames. Black smoke filled the air and screams reverberated in the space. The ground shook violently as if an earthquake had occurred. Flying iron pieces scattered like raindrops, smashing into the bodies of the Special Administrative Region Garrison team members, causing many to be injured. Flames engulfed many areas of the battlefield. What's going on? As soon as he arrived here, the hellish scene that looked like it was bombarded by landmines came into his view. Wu Yan jumped in fright. Is the battle this intense? Just as Wu Yan finished his sentence as if to answer his question, a delicate yet authoritative voice came from behind him. Before you even arrived, the battle had already escalated. Natsuki walked out of the void behind Wu Yan with a parasol in hand. She glared at him with a displeased look. Didn't I tell you to stay in school? Why are you still here? Why is this happening? Hearing Natsuki's words, Wu Yan knew that she's not blaming him for leaving the school without permission. She's just unhappy that he allowed her students to be abducted by the Black Death Emperor's men. Normally, Natsuki looked like she didn't care, but in reality she loved her students very much. She was a classic example of a responsible, caring, hard-spoken, soft-hearted teacher. It's all Vatler's fault. Wu Yan bitterly laughed after he spat out those words. Besides, if you knew someone in the school could decipher Nalacuvala's method of control, why didn't you tell me so I could protect her? Natsuki said unhappily, I don't know much either. I just know a little bit. How can I explain it to you? Wu Yan's bitter smile deepened. Natsuki lifted her head and looked ahead. Enough talk, they're here. Ping. As soon as he finished speaking, a loud voice and a huge figure appeared from the thick black smoke in front of them. Amidst the mechanical sounds of rising and falling, a strangely shaped machine about 7 to 8 meters tall, with a black gold body and 6 mechanical legs, walked over clumsily. It was like a huge mechanical spider wrapped in armor. Its hemispherical head was buried in an oval body, and there were 2 tentacle-like hooks on its front end. The 6 legs covered in heavy mechanical armor moved forward. Along the way, the wreckage of the buildings and armored vehicles were crushed under its trampling. A dazzling red beam shot out from the center of its crystal-like head and swept across the front. It easily tore apart the ground of the artificial island covered in steel and caused a series of explosions. Unlike its clumsy body, the strange-looking 6-legged mechanical spider released a red beam of light at the speed of light. It swept across everything in front of it. Anything that was hit by the beam of light, such as the ground and armored vehicles, were easily cut apart like thin paper. Then they were blown away together with the intense explosion of flames. Debris and metal shards flew everywhere. Such destructive power far exceeded the standard of normal weapons. It was even stronger than tanks and fighter jets. It was comparable to familiars. Chapter 923. That's Nalacuvara? Wu Yan asked Natsuki in a doubtful tone. Are you sure that's a weapon made in ancient times and not something made with advanced technology? Wu Yan asked Natsuki. Are you sure that's a weapon made in ancient times and not something made with advanced technology? What do you think ancient weapons are like? Do you think they're like unevolved apes holding stone tools? Natsuki tilted her head and looked at the mechanical spider, which was Nalacuvala. Before the human era, there are still many things that we can't understand. Let's not talk about its appearance, just look at its power. Do you think it's something that can be made with modern technology? That's true. That's true. Wu Yan sighed. Then he started doubting himself. But this isn't enough to call it a weapon that can kill a primogenitor and destroy countless civilizations, right? Do you think I haven't thought about this before? Natsuki's expression became slightly more serious. Nalacuvara's current power is indeed incomparable to the rumors. It feels like the rumors have been exaggerated. But I've already tested it, that piece of junk. It can learn from external attacks and evolve its own capabilities. It's immune to all previous attacks. Immune to all previous attacks? Wu Yan frowned. If that's all, it's fine. If we kill it in one go, no matter how much it evolves, it's useless. Natsuki seemed to have a headache. But I didn't expect it to be able to transform the surrounding material elements after being damaged, thereby automatically repairing its own functions. Auto-repair? This time Wu Yan finally took it seriously. Then if it's immune to all previous attacks. Ah. Natsuki nodded. She lowered her voice. Then it's an unbreakable weapon. It's a weapon that can get stronger as it fights. This. Wu Yan didn't know what to say. He shook his head. How troublesome. Not necessarily. Natsuki denied Wu Yan's claim out of the ordinary. She looked at Wu Yan's face with a meaningful look. Nalacuvara is troublesome, but it shouldn't be difficult for you to deal with it. Doesn't either of your familiars have the ability to make it disappear completely? Huh. Wu Yan looked at Natsuki in surprise. Do you know what kind of ability my familiars have? Well. Who knows? Natsuki turned her head away. She said in an irresponsible tone. He smiled and said, I have more or less guessed it. That's impressive. Wu Yan complimented. Natsuki only snorted. If that's the case, hurry up and take care of it. You really know how to order your juniors around. Wu Yan didn't know whether to laugh or cry, but he quickly smiled and looked at Nalacuvara. A glint flashed in his eyes. Unfortunately, you're going to be disappointed. Natsuki said. Natsuki was stunned. Not only can it repair itself, but it can also nullify the damage it received once. Wu Yan licked his lips as if he was tempted. Nalacuvara, I'm a little interested too. What do you mean? Natsuki turned around to look at him. You want to? Well. Wu Yan didn't explain, he just smiled. You just need to stay here and watch. Wu Yan ignored Natsuki, who was looking at him with a confused expression, and teleported behind Nalakuvra. Wu Yan looked at Nalakuvra, who was destroying everything around it like a headless fly. He found it funny. Then he extended his hand towards Nalakuvra. Plang. Just as Wu Yan's hand was about to touch Nalakuvra's body, a wave of light flashed from Nalakuvra's body. Wu Yan's hand stopped about 10 centimeters away from Nalakuvra. It's as if he got blocked by a thick wall. He couldn't go any further. Wu Yan's hand couldn't go any further. Wu Yan's hand stopped in midair about 10 centimeters away from Nalakuvra. It's as if he got blocked by a thick wall. He couldn't advance any further. Is that a barrier? Wu Yan was stunned for a moment. Nalakuvra took advantage of this moment to move its body. It changed its clumsy way of moving and moved its 6 limbs quickly and nimbly. It turned around and faced Wu Yan. Then, on its semicircular head, a red dot that seemed to act as an eye flashed and stared at Wu Yan. As if it had seen it, Nalakuvra's pair of tentacle-like hooks suddenly flashed with red light. Not long after, 2 red light beams shot out from the tips of the hooks, brushing past the evaporated atmosphere and shooting straight towards Xian with a scorching heat. Umph. Wu Yan narrowed his eyes. His body flashed and disappeared from the spot. The 2 red light beams pierced through the afterimage he left behind and swept towards the back without slowing down. Like a flame from a flamethrower, the intense heat plowed 2 charred trenches on the ground. They flashed into the distance and ended the attack with an explosion. Very troublesome indeed. Wu Yan was standing on Nalakuvra's back. He looked at the ripples on the barrier under his feet and curled his lips. Looks like I have to deal with this barrier first. Before Wu Yan could finish his sentence, Nalakuvra swung its body and flung him away. Wu Yan stopped in midair. He waved his hand and a crimson ripple appeared in the air. A sword hilt emitting a scorching aura came out of the ripple and landed in Wu Yan's hand. Burn until nothing is left. Accompanied by this soft whisper that sounded like a call and also like a declaration, the flames of the red lotus roared and expanded from the blade of Nian Shana. The fire grew fiercer and fiercer. In the end, the entire sky above the artificial island was enveloped in a sea of fire. The blue sky turned into the color of a red lotus at dusk. Scorching air currents rolled wildly. Shortly after, the sea of fire suddenly shrank and swept towards the center like a whirlpool. Like a thundercloud formed by flames, a red lotus fire pillar shot down from the center of the whirlpool and shot towards Nalakuvra like a thunderbolt. Bang! In an instant the flames spread out in all directions like a ring. All the buildings collapsed in an instant, turning into broken rubble that was carried away by the flaming tornado and violently swept away. The artificial island was left in ruins. That idiot! Natsuki's figure flashed at the edge of the artificial island. She couldn't help but curse as she looked at the ruins that were burning in a sea of fire. He went overboard. No matter how much Natsuki grumbled, this artificial island will have to be rebuilt even if it doesn't sink. In a corner of the sea of fire, Nalakuvra was like a moth that had jumped into a fire. He swung his huge body and kept struggling. The more he struggled, the weaker his strength became. It's not that it can't hold on any longer. It's just that it's starting to become immune to the red lotus flames. It won't be long before it won't feel any discomfort when moving through the red lotus flames. However, the barrier that had been guarding against external attacks had completely disappeared. Wu Yan grabbed Shana and moved to Nalakuvra's side. He reached out his hand and placed it on Nalakuvra's body. Buzz! In the next second, an invisible wave came from Wu Yan's hand. On the back of his hand, a sword-shaped mark made of red dots appeared. A red light enveloped Nalakuvra's body. Then the red light turned into red veins that covered Nalakuvra's body. Nalakuvra seemed to have sensed some danger. His body began to struggle violently. However, it didn't take long for his struggles to subside at a speed visible to the naked eye. Eventually he completely stopped moving and stood still on the spot. Wu Yan smiled when he saw this. Relic transformation. Done. Chapter 924. The large luxurious yacht Oceanus Grave was currently pacing back and forth on the surface of the sea not far from the artificial island at an extremely slow speed, as if it was patrolling and observing something. The front of the bow of the yacht was facing the artificial island that was emitting flames, constantly rising and falling. In the deepest part of the ocean grave is the cargo hold. The space that should be enough to fill a few trucks is now filled to the brim with machines covered in thick armor. Other than the empty space in front of the ship, there's only a gap the size of a person between the machines. One can imagine how big they are. And their appearance was even more unforgettable. They have 6 mechanical legs that look like giant nails, 2 tentacles that look like spiders, and red glowing eyes on their heads. The machines here are all Nalakuvras. However, from the looks of it, these Nalakuvras are still in hibernation. They haven't been activated. Upon closer inspection, one could see that there were a total of 5 Nalakuvras here. Each of them was the same size as the one that was causing a ruckus outside. However, behind the 5 Nalakuvras in a row, deep in the depths of the forest, there was another Nalakuvra. Seems like there's an even bigger monster placed there. Although it was covered in the same armor as the other Nalakuvras, it was a mechanical body that was covered in armor. However, this monster was twice the size of the other Nalakuvras. It had the same mechanical limbs, but its body was bigger. Its head was not placed at the front of the body. Instead, it was placed at the top of the body like a 3-pronged crown. On top of it, there was a long and slender gun barrel that looked like a launcher. If someone who doesn't know the situation were to see this, they would be shocked. They would be in for a shock. One Nalakuvula almost destroyed the artificial island. If it was allowed to enter Itagami City, the city would be destroyed as well. If there were 6 Nalakuvulas, plus the one that looked even more powerful, then it would be a total disaster. The warlord's domain, which is several times bigger than Itagami City, will be destroyed. When that happens, the Black Death Emperor faction will have achieved their goal. From this, the rumor of the Nalakuvras destroying countless civilizations isn't an exaggeration. As for whether or not they can kill the primogenitor, that remains to be seen. However, it doesn't matter to the Black Death Emperor faction. Compared to killing the first true ancestor, the true goal of the Black Death Emperor faction was to destroy the Treaty of the Sacred Domain. And if the first true ancestor's territory, the warlord domain, were to be destroyed, if the first primogenitor's domain is destroyed, the Treaty of Sanctuary will be destroyed. The world will be engulfed in the flames of war. In other words, whether it was the Orc Doctrine or the Vampire Commander, these were only secondary issues. The Black Death Emperor faction only wanted to stir up a war. At least that was the current Black Death Emperor faction. At the top of Nalakuvula's head, a man in military uniform stood there. His face was scarred and his hair was almost white. He looked at the ancient weapon below with a burning gaze. Soon our war will begin. His hands clenched into fists behind his back. He stared at the largest Nalakuvra. That's the center of all the Nalakuvras. It's the commander of the Nalakuvras. As long as he could sit inside and successfully control it, the rest of the Nalakuvulas would obey the orders of the commander. Through this, he could control an entire Nalakuvula team. Suppressing the excitement in his heart, the man in uniform picked up a communication device. How's the decoding of the command coming along? It won't be long before they're all done. A powerful voice came from the communication device. The man in military uniform couldn't help but smile evilly. What about the Nalakuvras outside? They were making a ruckus just now. The voice on the other side of the communicator seemed to be a little excited. It was obvious that he was also a militant. But now the artificial island has been covered by a sea of fire. I can't see the situation inside. They should still be making a ruckus. Sea of fire? Contrary to the other party's excitement, the man's expression froze and he frowned. Why would a sea of fire appear? Well, we're a little far from there, so we can't see it clearly. Maybe some large flammable items were affected? Hearing the other party's words, the man in military uniform didn't seem relieved at all. Instead, his brows were tightly knitted together as a bad premonition surfaced in his heart. No, something is not right. Following the ominous premonition in his heart, the man in the military uniform said to the communicator, "You guys go to the artificial island and check out the situation." As soon as the man in the military uniform said that, a mocking voice was suddenly heard from below. "Don't bother." "Who is it?" The man in the military uniform narrowed his eyes and looked down. On the open space in front of the Nalakuvulas, who were lined up in a row, a figure appeared out of nowhere. He was looking up at him with a pair of wine-red eyes that contained a smile. A faint smile hung on his face, causing the man in the military uniform to feel a chill in his heart. When did this person get here? He didn't notice at all. So you're Christopher? You're Gardosius, right? The man in the military uniform, Christopher Gardosius, looked shocked. Wu Yan grinned when he saw how shocked Gardos was. I can't believe you hid so well. It took me a lot of time to find you. Gardosius regained his composure and his expression gradually returned to normal. Who are you? Attack officer. Wu Yan stopped smiling and shrugged. Although I'm only an apprentice, I see. Gardosius raised his eyebrows. You found this place? I didn't expect an attack officer from Itagami Island to violate the treaty and trespass on a legally protected ship. You can sue me, Wu Yan said. I don't mind. That won't do. Gardos sneered as he grabbed a military dagger from his back and roared loudly. Because we're terrorists. As he roared, Gardonio's body began to swell as if something was drilling out of his body. In just a moment, his whole body was covered in fur, and his slightly aged head turned into a ferocious beast's head. Ah! With a loud shout, Gardos leaped up like a bullet and arrived in front of Wu Yan. He swung his military dagger towards Wu Yan's head with bulging veins on his arm. He's going for the kill. However, Wu Yan kept a smile on his face. He leaned to the side and Gardosius's dagger grazed his shoulder with a sonic boom. You're pretty strong, you're pretty fast too. You're pretty good with your dagger too, as expected of a soldier from the War King's domain. Wu Yan danced around like he was dancing. He placed his hand on Gardo's shoulder and Gardo's hair stood on end. Too bad you're only peak tier 7, not tier 8. You're still too early to be my opponent. What's peak tier 7? Before Gardosius could finish his question, a series of crackling electric sounds entered his ears. Then, a violent blue and white electric light filled his entire vision and flashed on his body. Ah! Along with the sound of electricity, Gardos howled in pain. When the electric light dimmed, his whole body was charred black. His eyes rolled back and he fell to the ground with a loud thud. Wu Yan clapped his hands and pursed his lips. I thought the beastman's body could hold on for a while longer. How fragile! He turned around and looked at the 5 Nalakuvalas and the commander. Wu Yan giggled. Well, but I'll accept your results without hesitation. Chapter 925. On the artificial island, a lot of special region guards were busy working there. They are trying to extinguish the sea of fire. The fully armed guards have turned into firefighters. They are carrying heavy hoses and bottles of fire extinguishers. With the help of the surrounding fire trucks, they are approaching the center of the sea of fire. They are trying to put out the flames on the artificial island. The size of the artificial island may not be as big as Itagami Island, but it's not small either. It wouldn't be easy to extinguish all the fire here, of course, compared to the previous life and death battle. Although the work of extinguishing the fire was much heavier and more tiring, it was a lot easier for them. After all, there would not be any danger. It was believed that compared to a life and death battle, no one would dislike this tiring and heavy work. Bang! Wu Yan tossed Gardos to the ground. He turned to Natsuki and asked, "What should we do with this guy?" Gardos was a terrorist from Battle Monarch's domain and the current leader of Black Death Emperor faction. Black Death Emperor faction was quite famous in Battle Monarch's domain. Of course, the people of Battle Monarch's domain wouldn't let Itagami City deal with such a serious criminal. Natsuki sighed and said helplessly, "Lock him up for now. No matter what, he has caused us a lot of trouble." Wu Yan nodded nonchalantly. This old man has nothing to do with him. How he deals with him is none of his business. Who cares if he lives or dies? Natsuki raised her head when she saw Wu Yan's nonchalant expression. By the way, where is Nalakuvala? Who knows? Wu Yan waved his hand and pointed at the sea of fire. Maybe he turned into ashes. Oh. Natsuki narrowed her eyes. She looked at Wu Yan as if she could see through his thoughts. She stared at Wu Yan. Wu Yan shrugged in a calm manner. At the very least, if you can't hear his thumping heart, he would look like he's at peace with the situation. Natsuki waved the fan in her hand and turned around. Since he turned into ashes, it's best if we don't let him appear again. Otherwise, the people in Itagami Island won't want to be left out. They will be tempted to make a move. Wu Yan grinned and he turned around as well. He and Natsuki had their backs to each other and neither of them said anything. Wu Yan knows that many ambitious people will be tempted by a weapon that can destroy countless civilizations. If it wasn't for the fact that Nalacuvula's control method couldn't be deciphered, a lot of people would have gotten involved, including Itagami Island's higher-ups. Now the Black Death Emperor sect had openly used Nalacuvula once. Those who have designs on this ancient weapon should take action. If Nalacuvula is discovered by the city's security forces, Itagami Island will become the center of conflict. From this perspective, Nalacuvula being turned into a noble phantasm and became Wu Yan's noble phantasm. It's a good thing for both Wu Yan and the others. After all, any weapon he turned into a noble phantasm can't escape his control. Even if he doesn't know how to control Nalacuvula, they will still obey his orders. In other words, Wu Yan has basically turned himself into a commander. He just has to be careful not to use them carelessly. Otherwise, it'll be troublesome. Far away from the artificial island, there's a building with a wide view. On the rooftop, Vatler looked at the artificial island that was engulfed in flames and his yacht that was drifting on the surface of the sea like a headless fly. He couldn't help but reveal a happy smile. Looks like they had a lot of fun. If only I could join them. Vatler muttered to himself. He smiled and turned his head away. Well, I've enjoyed myself to my heart's content. There's nothing to regret. Vatler's voice got softer and softer. He pulled his gaze away from the horizon. Because behind him, there was a young girl whose face was covered by a pair of glasses. Her expression was completely unclear and the light reflected off her glasses. She slowly walked over and she was wearing a uniform, Saikai Academy's student uniform. Vatler didn't even turn his head as if he already knew the girl's identity and said it without hesitation. Silence Destroyer, huh? Or is it better to call you the Lion King organization's third saint? Just as Vatler had said, this girl in the Rainbow Sea Academy uniform was one of the 3 highest decision-makers in the Lion King organization. She was one of the so-called 3 saints. In fact, the reason why Yukaina came to Itagami Island was because of this young girl. However, Yukaina probably didn't know that one of her superiors was hiding in her school. Hearing Vatler's words of admiration and mockery, the girl's face under her spectacles changed, but her tone didn't change at all. As long as you like it. She glanced at Vatler's tattered clothes and continued. But you seem to have done a lot of things that others don't know about. It's interesting. Vatler smiled foolishly. He finally looked at the girl. Is that so? The girl paused for a moment before handing a document to Vatler. This is a document from Warlord's domain. Vatler raised an eyebrow and took the document from the young lady's hand. Before he could open it, the silent young lady spoke again. I have a question. Vatler's hands paused for a moment before he nodded as if nothing had happened. He gestured for the girl to continue. The young girl asked after a moment of silence as usual. Is the Black Death faction's operation under the orders of that Great One? As the words that Lord came out from the young lady's mouth, the atmosphere of the scene changed. Even the young lady's emotionless tone seemed to have lowered a little. For a moment it actually caused the air to become somewhat cold. However, Vatler's expression did not change from the beginning to the end. Even his tone did not change. The commotion this time was caused by my personal interest. Vatler added with an indecipherable smile. Let's just treat it like that for now. The girl lowered her head. Then let's change the question. The young lady's gaze landed on Vatler's body as if she was sizing him up. To be more precise, she was looking at his new body. His skin was smooth and clean and his clothes were nowhere to be seen. Her wide spectacles glinted with a bright light. What kind of person is able to make you like this? She had no choice but to ask this question. She knew what kind of person Vatler was. To put it simply, he was a very dangerous person. There were only 4 primogenitors in the world. They were the strongest beings in the world. The 4th primogenitor wasn't fully awakened, but that didn't lower her evaluation of the primogenitors. Disregarding the 4th true ancestor who had yet to fully awaken and the other 3 powerful true ancestors, Vatler, who always had a harmless smile on his face, was the most powerful vampire in the entire world. If he went all out, the gap between him and the other 3 primogenitors wasn't the same as the other vampires. That's why he was called the vampire closest to a primogenitor. There was no doubt that Vatler's strength was at the forefront of this world. Even so, he had appeared in front of him in such a state. If this was the result of a battle, then what kind of person could have caused Vatler to become like this? The girl had to ask. Vatler paused for a moment and smiled. It was a smile that had never appeared since the girl appeared. It was a smile that was completely different from her previous casual smile. It was a sincere smile. An interesting person. An interesting person? Yes. Vatler stopped looking at the document in his hand. He turned around and looked at the burning artificial island. An interesting person. The girl followed Vatler's actions and looked at the burning artificial island. After a long time, she lowered her head and remained silent. Chapter 926. Itagami Island, Southern Residential Area. Nighttime. She was holding a bowl in her hand, and there was a platter of freshly cooked dishes on the table. However, Nagisa remained in the same posture as she held the bowl. She didn't touch her chopsticks and she sat there in a daze. It was as if her soul had left her body, and her mind was filled with thoughts. She was completely devoid of her usual lively and adorable self. Guqing didn't stop eating, but his tired eyes never left Nagisa. Seeing his sister in such a bad mood, he was puzzled. This was the first time he saw her like this. Since the day he had Nagisa as a sister, Nagisa had always been a lively, cheerful, talkative and cute little sister. Whether it was before or now, Nagisa had never behaved so strangely. In the past, Nagisa always had a smile on her face. Unlike now, this wasn't like her at all. Asa, what's wrong? Guqing stopped eating. He looked at the dazed Nagisa and asked worriedly. Nagisa, what's wrong? Nagisa was still in a daze. She didn't hear Guqing at all. Nagisa. Nagisa. Guqing frowned and waved his hand in front of Nagisa's face. He raised his voice. Nagisa. Nagisa was startled by Guqing's sudden raise of his voice. She came back to her senses and saw Guqing's worried expression. Nagisa quickly regained her smile. What's wrong, Guqing? I should be the one asking that question. Guqing grew more and more worried after seeing Nagisa's reaction. What's wrong, Nagisa? You don't look energetic. And no, of course not. Nagisa forced an unnatural smile under Guqing's aggressive gaze. She turned her gaze away. This time, no matter how low Guqing's EQ was, he was certain that Nagisa had something on her mind. Nagisa. Guqing put down his chopsticks. He met Sasa's vision seriously. If there's anything, you can talk to me. Nagisa nodded. Nagisa hesitated for a moment but shook her head. No, it's really nothing. Really? Guqing was doubtful. It's true. Seeing Guqing's doubtful expression, Yizichin said. Nagisa puffed up her cheeks and knocked on the plate in front of her. All right, let's eat. Nagisa did not give Guqing a chance to speak. She picked up her chopsticks and started eating quickly. Guqing stared at her with worry in his eyes. That's the gist of it. In Yukina's house, Koju knelt down and told Kotori and Yukaina what happened last night. Kotori and Yukaina looked at each other after hearing Koju's story. You're right, Nisa-chan has been a little different lately. Yukaina pondered for a moment before continuing. She's not as cheerful and talkative as she used to be. Sometimes she even gets distracted in class and doesn't realize that she's almost walking into a wall when she's walking. There was one time when she almost got hit by a car when she didn't look at the road. I have the same feeling. Kotori narrowed her eyes. She grabbed the pearl in her mouth and didn't put it in her mouth. Nagisa seems to have something on her mind. Is that so? Did you notice it? Guqing nodded his head in frustration. This has been going on for a few days now. She doesn't look any different from before, but she's always spacing out for no reason. She doesn't even have the energy to eat. This isn't like her at all. There must be something wrong with Nagisa, but she doesn't seem to want to be honest with me at all. Guqing prostrated himself on the ground. That's why I'm begging you. Gogu. Yukaina. With a pleading expression, Guqing said pitifully, please help me talk to Nagisa. You're both girls and good friends. Nagisa should be willing to share her troubles with you. Please help me. Kotori and Yukaina sighed. Kotori and Yukaina smiled bitterly. Senpai, don't worry. Yukaina said. I'm also worried about Nagisa-chan. I'll help you. Well. Kotori bit her lollipop and waved her hand. Let's try asking Nagisa and see if we can get anything out of her. Thank you so much. Guqing was so moved that he cried out. As he was too emotional, he knocked his head hard against the ground, causing him to cry out in pain. Kotori and Yukaina couldn't help but laugh in their hearts. That night, Kotori and Yukaina called Nagisa to Yukina's home. Yukina's expression was tense. Her back was straight and her face was stern. She gave off a strange feeling of oppression. Kotori was much more casual, but her eyes were locked on Nagisa. Nagisa was intimidated by their auras, so she shrank back a little. Kotori-chan. Yukina-chan. Nagisa raised her hand weakly. Why are you looking for me? Kotori glanced at Nagisa before exchanging a glance with Yukaina. She was the first to speak. Nagisa, you seem a bit off lately. Nagisa was surprised, but she waved her hand. Oh, what's wrong with me? Nagisa is still the same as before. Nagisa-chan, you can't be like this. Yukaina moved her head closer to Nagisa. We're friends, you can't lie to a friend. Nagisa opened her mouth and wanted to argue, but when she saw how serious Yukaina was, she couldn't bring herself to say anything. Nagisa glanced at Kotori and pursed her lips. She lowered her head like a child who did something wrong. I'm sorry, Kotori-chan, Yukina-chan. Kotori and Yukaina breathed a sigh of relief when they saw Nagisa lowering her head and apologizing. They finally smiled. Nagisa-chan. Yukaina held Nagisa's hand and asked gently. What's troubling you? Tell us, we'll help you. This. Nagisa's eyes flashed with a trace of distress. She looked at Kotori, who was also looking at her. A small teardrop appeared at the corner of her eye. Kotori and Yukaina didn't say anything either. They stared at Nagisa, waiting for her to speak. Nagisa clenched her teeth. Their reaction made her suppress her worries for a long time come back to her. Kotori-chan. Nagisa turned to face Kotori and closed her eyes as if she had made up her mind. Then she started sobbing, her voice filled with guilt. I'm sorry. Kotori froze. She asked in confusion. Why are you apologizing all of a sudden? Kotori-chan. Nagisa pouted. She looked sad. Nagisa wronged Kotori-chan. Something wrong. Kotori was stunned. Nagisa didn't look like she was faking it. She frowned. What happened? Nagisa flinched and bit her lips in fear. Yukaina, who was holding her hand, could feel Nagisa's trembling hand. Yukaina tightened her grip on Nagisa's hand as if to give her courage. She looked at her with an encouraging smile on her face. Feeling the warmth from Yukina's hand, Nagisa's courage increased. She took a deep breath, hesitated for a moment, and finally decided to throw caution to the wind and yelled out loud. I kissed Sensei. 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 In the hall, Nagisa's venting voice reverberated clearly in the hall. Kotori and Yukaina heard it. The two girls' pupils dilated and their expressions changed drastically. In the end, they became sluggish.